All right, now that people are joining, I guess I'll begin. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome to the first live video of the Persian Poetics page. Alaikum assalam to everyone. So for those of you who've been following this page for a while, or maybe you've looked at the highlights, you would have noticed that every time this page would get 1,000 followers, I would do a Q&A where I would answer some of your questions. But alhamdulillah, the page has been growing too quickly to keep up with the pace of 1,000 followers per Q&A. And also some of the questions are just really long-winded and I can't really respond to them in a quick, yes or no, one screen worth of typing type of response. So I figured inshallah I would do a Q&A on video so whoever can ask a question and I can speak at length about it if need be. Thank you so much for everyone coming in. Thank you. It's good to see you guys as well. Alaikum assalam. So if anyone has any questions, they can just answer it or ask it via the question thing. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's nice words. So I guess until there's a question, I'll just begin by reading some of Hafez, inshallah. So you can type your questions in the Q&A thing. I think I should be able to type. Someone says can't hear me. If anyone has an issue hearing me, please let me know. Salam. Salam to everyone joining. All right, so I'll read the first ghazal of Hafez, or a nice one, not necessarily the first. And we need to fight against secularism. Salam, not a question, but thank you for your translations. Thanks for everyone coming. All right, so just drop your questions if you have anything in the questions thing. So I'm going to read a ghazal to give people time to ask questions. صلاح کار کجا و من خراب کجا ببین تفاوت ره که از کجاست تا به کجا دلم ز صومعه بگرفت و خرقه سالوس کجاست دیر و مغان و شراب ناب کجا چه نسبت است به رندی صلاح و تقوا را سماع وعظ کجا نغمه رباب کجا ز روی دوست دل دشمنان چه دریابد چراغ مرده کجا شمع آفتاب کجا چو کحل بینش ما خاک آستان شماست کجا رویم بفرما از این جناب کجا مبین به سیب زنخدان که چاه در راه است کجا همی روی ای دل بدین شتاب کجا بشد که یاد خوشش باد روزگار وصال خود آن کرشمه کجا رفت آن عتاب کجا قرار و خواب ز حافظ طمع مدار ای دوست قرار چیست صبوری کدام و خواب کجا. All right, thanks for all the nice questions. If anyone has any questions, please drop them in the Q&A. So don't just type them into the chat because there's too many sometimes. But inshallah, it'll be easier with the Q&A thing. So I'm going to start answering some of the questions in here. All right. Someone asked, where are you from? My dad is from central Iran and my mom is from a Turkish-speaking province of Iran called Azerbaijan. But I was born and mostly raised in the United States. All right, tell us a bit about yourself, a background. So I was raised in a practicing Muslim family in the United States, but I also traveled to Iran a lot and lived there as well. So I've grown up between these two cultures. And I studied economics and Middle East studies and some poetry and things like that in university. Then after that, I went to Jordan for a year where I studied tasawwuf and Arabic and things like that. If there's any more specific questions, please let me know. Hi from Brazil. Hi everyone, where you are. How can I learn Farsi? Okay, this is definitely the most common question I ever get is how to learn Farsi. I would say if you live near a place where it's formally taught, that's definitely the best way to learn the language. I think nowadays people peddle this learn online, learn via Instagram, words in whatever language. I don't really think you can learn a language online to the fullest extent. It's best to be able to go to a class in person if that exists. If there's no class, try to locate someone near you who knows it. Again, that human connection is the best way to learn, in my opinion. Even I, someone who grew up speaking it and learning the language, I went to a class where I formally studied. So what we would do is we would learn the meters and we would just go line by line and go through the meanings because, these texts, they're so old. It's not like modern Persian and you really need to know the meters and the rhymes to be able to read them properly. So a lot of people in Pakistan ask me this. I'm almost confident that in every major city in Pakistan, there should be some Angemon or Marquez or something that focuses on teaching Persian. I know for a fact that there is one in Karachi because a friend of mine who's Afghan would go to it. Let's see if there's any other questions. Yep, someone said, I'm guessing you're from Iran but grew up outside. Exactly. Zende bashi, shoma ham zende bashi. Someone again asked if there are resources to learn Persian. Someone said, I'm Assyrian but my parents never taught me Farsi. Well, inshallah, you can learn Farsi. Can you please share the source of Persian poetry of Rumi that you translate? If you go to ganjur.net, this is also a common question. Ganjur.net. Ganjoor.net. Ganjoor.net. Inshallah, I'll post a story after this live where I type in the URL or link to it. All of the poems of most of the major poets of the Persian tradition are on there. You can read them. You can even hear them. So what I just did, read from it, you can hit the play button a lot of times and it'll read it to you. So every single Rumi poem that I translate, the original text is found there, inshallah. Let's see. Any more questions? Are you Sufi? Yes, I'm in the Qadiriyya Tariqa. Can you contact me to learn Farsi? Unfortunately, I'm not a Persian teacher, but inshallah there will be someone near you if you live in a major city in most parts of the world. Thank you so much, Mr. Talha. I appreciate you. What is the difference between Sufi and Shirazi? This is kind of vague. A Sufi is someone who's generally a practitioner of Sufi Islam via Tariqa. And Shirazi is, if I understand correctly, is a school of thought within Shia Islam. But Hafez is Shirazi and Sadi is Shirazi are just named that because they're from Shiraz, not because they follow that school of thought. Can you please talk about the hypersexualization of Rumi's work under an Orientalist approach? Sure. So I find this really interesting because when someone from an Orientalist point of view wants to sexualize the East and they want to read Eastern poetry and they want it to be sexualized, there is a lot of sexual poetry in the East. You know, we're humans. We have all the same desires as other people. And of course, in our societies, even if it's taboo, there's going to be people who write about sex in their poetry. For example, Obaid Khani is probably the guy that I know who does it most openly. And he's available in English translation, Dick Davis's Faces of Love. He is very openly wrote about sexuality. And Hafez and Sadi and stuff, they also have love poems that include elements that are, we'd say, taboo, that they're about sex. They're either called the khabisat or the hazliyat, where they're considered kind of too taboo to just have in the average divan. If you get a bigger collection of poems called the kulliyat, which means literally in everything, in the back there'll be a section called the hazliyat. Sadis are famous, but among people who are well read into Sadi, but the average person probably would be shocked to find out that they exist. So what's interesting to me is that we do have this poetry. It exists in our canon, but the Orientalists take a poet who isn't a poet writing about human love or sex or whatever, excuse my language, and they insert it. And that's what's really weird to me. It really shows kind of it really speaks for them. You know, they have poets that if they really want to, they can look at and say, here, look, they're writing about that stuff. But for some reason, they insert it into Rumi. And part of the issue is the misunderstanding. So I don't think that Coleman Barks read Rumi and thought, let me add this in and ruin Rumi. I think that he misunderstood the poetry of the murid, mentor type of relationship as being about human love, which confuses me because he often says that his legitimacy for translating Rumi is via his relationship with the Sufi Sheikh Bawa Muhyiddin. So I don't know, maybe he had a confusion about what the extent of that relationship is. Another issue is that Coleman Barks was working from translation. So when you get, two layers removed from the text, you can kind of misinterpret things. But for example, the poem I most recently translated, the poem literally said he set aside his silk. So I think Coleman Barks just interpreted that as he took off his clothing. He took a little leap. Translators often do that. But with these Orientalists, you often see, this kind of weird insertion of sex always. And if you look at their depictions of the East, it's always, there's harems and women with, you always see the picture going like this with a niqab and she has kahal in her eyes. And it's just very weird and cringy. And you can even read this. I remember I was reading a Victorian British person's depiction of Egypt, a travel log. He said, it was amazing, the women in Egypt, it was so mysterious because Victorian women, they were really bound up. They wore big dresses, but it had all kinds of straps and latches and things like that. But, Egyptian women, they were wearing niqabs or burqas or whatever. The abaya, it's hot, it can't be bound up. Sure, it's all encompassing, all covering. But, if the wind blows, you could theoretically make out their figure. So to this British Orientalist, this clothing that was actually designed to obscure or hide sexuality from the public sphere was very sexual to him. It was hot, sort of, for lack of a better term. So yeah, they've definitely always looked at us with this weird understanding of what our sexuality is like. And it comes in two sides too, because on one side, they think we're really hypersexualized. But on the other side, they characterize Islam as very bound up and against sex and strict. So it almost doesn't make any sense when you break it down. Where's the Q&A section? There should be a button, if I'm not mistaken, because there is a question section. There should be a button where you can ask questions. I don't know what the deal with that is, but usually there is one. Why do Sufis pray to Muhammad? Are using them to connect to God? Just curious. So Sufis don't actually pray to Muhammad. They still pray to God. You can send salutations upon Muhammad. I mean, the Quran says, this is like a rough translation, verily God and his angels send salutations upon Muhammad. O you who have believed, you know, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu ala nabi taslim, something like that. So basically, the Quran instructs us actually to send salutations upon the Prophet. So that's what we do as Sufis. That's what every Muslim does. People kind of misunderstand the extent to which we venerate the Prophet as being like above or related to God. That's not true. I think one of the more controversial things is tawassul. The understanding that via the help of someone who's exalted in the eyes of God, like Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you can actually be connected to God. This is kind of more controversial to a more strict understanding of Ahl Sunnah Islam. It's called, you can look it up, it's called istimdad or istiqatha, which means seeking help. So even in its most, if you could, I don't want to say extreme, but even in the most out there version, it's still ultimately through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So no one prays to Muhammad or wants to connect with Muhammad. It's just through him to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's see. I think movies and music probably no language. Yeah, movies and music are a good way to learn a language. Speaking to people is good as well. Just getting an understanding of how it's spoken. Are there still dervish like Shams Tabrizi? Yes, there are still Sufis like Shams Tabrizi, wandering dervishes. Is there space for LGBTQ plus in Islam? So I would kind of rather keep this more about poetry, but if people want to know about Islam, sure. So as far as being gay is concerned, being gay is not haram. Being attracted to anyone is not haram. The feeling is not what's haram, is what I want to mean. So you can have any feeling for anything. You can think, I don't know, if you're getting a fight with someone, man, you know, I wish I punched you in the face right now. I hate you. But that doesn't mean that you did it. So there's no sin there, right? If anything, resisting an inclination you shouldn't act upon has a reward. It has a hasana. So if someone really annoys you and you really want to, you know, hurt them or do something, but you bridle your anger, that actually has a hasana. So being gay itself, just the simple feeling attraction to the opposite gender is not haram, point blank. I mean, we have it in the poetry all over the place. If you open up Hafez's divan, he writes tons of love poetry about men. The issue of Islam and Islamic theology is acting upon that, is actually engaging in a sexual act with another man. That's when Islam says, no, we don't accept this. So if someone says, you know, I just feel attraction to the other sex, they didn't control that. You know, no one feels or feels attracted to or has an urge that they created. Urges appear, right? It appears from your subconscious and you feel it. You know, if I see food and I want to eat it, I didn't think, let me want to eat it. I just already want to eat it. So whether or not you act upon it, you know, Allahu Alam, I'm not a faqih. That's for you to figure out. That's between you and God and your deen and how you want to understand that, or to the extent. Now, as far as creating an identity around it, that's probably where it's more of a murky area, as far as Islam kind of frowns upon creating identities around these types of things generally. But I don't want to comment too much on it. You know, it's more of like a case-by-case basis. What society you live in, to what extent. It's kind of more complicated, not so related to this. So from Pakistan here, there are many Afghans. Yes, that's one thing to take advantage of. If you have a diaspora community near you, you should definitely take advantage of that. A lot of places in the world have a lot of Afghans, Iranis, whatever, you name it, who speak Persian. So you can learn, go hang out with them, befriend them, go to their restaurants, their community centers, their masajid. Share this live on IGTV. Yes, this will be shared, Inchaallah. Ganjur is amazing. It is amazing. What do you say about the... Yes, Coleman Barks' translation is not a good translation. The name of my costume. So this is a Pirhan Tumban. This is a traditional Persian shirt. And this is called a dastar, or an ammame in Iranian Persian. It's just like a fabric, you know, it's just like a fabric, and you just wrap it around. And inshallah, maybe I'll make on my personal channel, talk more about it. Is there any good method to learn Persian, Farsi? Just practice, practice, practice. There's nothing other than practice can teach you a language. I learned Arabic from start to finish, and it's just rote practice with people who are already fluent. That's the thing. And the best is a native fluent speaker. That really helps. They use Rumi to fit their narrative of love. Yes, that's true. When should we expect your translated book? All right, at the moment, I am working at a pace of about 10 poems a day of working on the Rumi translation. Rumi's book actually, let me pull this out. So these are the quatrains of Rumi, many of which have appeared in Roman Barks. Roman Barks is incorrect translation. Robayat Maulana. There are 2,000 of these, if you want to get an idea of how many there are. Right? So this book includes an English commentary on some of the themes. So right now what I do is I go through about 10 a day. I translate them into English. I read the commentary. Someone from Iran is bringing me a Persian commentary on this so I can double check it, make sure that it's 100%, as close as the original intended meaning as possible. And inshallah, that will take about 200 days at the pace of 10 a day. This is really why I'm asking you guys to support this project on Patreon, because this is a lot of work. It's dense. It's not easy to go through. Sometimes one poem takes me an hour. It's not easy. I don't want to say, oh, it's so hard, but it really takes a lot of work, and I love doing it. I'm not complaining, but it will take a long time. This isn't a short project. If I wanted to do something like Coleman Barks, maybe I could do it in a week, but this is going to take a lot of time, and I want it to be good. That's why I'm asking you guys, if you can, if it's within your means, to support this project on the Patreon link in the description. Patreon is essentially the service that allows recurring donations, and this will really allow me to, instead of working my job, to just focus on this full time. When Corona ends, I would presumably be returning to working. I would hope that I don't have to, and that I could just focus on this full time. And inshallah, we can get this out faster. The people who are mistranslating Rumi, they have publishers, they have the culture, they have the Islamophobia, they have all the things in their favor. And on the other side, it's just someone like me or Zirar. So we really need you guys to rally behind us. And if it's not within your means to do it in Ganjur, I know many people are students, many people live in countries who are, unfortunately, the economy isn't doing so well. Just share the work, share the links, just try to get the word out there. We really need more people to know about this as much as possible. So as far as the long story short, as far as when you can expect the book, within the next 6 to 8 months, inshallah. زبان یار من فارسی و من فارسی رو نمیدانم. Inshallah you'll learn it, Talha Jan. Coleman Barks' translation of Roman poetry is wrong. Yes, Coleman Barks is wrong. Okay. Thank you so much for your nice comment, Nadai al-Ziyadi. Inshallah, maybe I'll be blessed. Thank you. Okay, can you explain fana and baqa? Okay, so in a linguistic sense, fana means annihilation or to not stay, to go away, let's say. And baqa means to stay. So in English, not in English, I'm sorry, in Arabic and Persian, baghi has kind of taken on like a local meaning as well. So you can say, I don't know, seta slice pizza khordam dota baghis. I ate 3 slices of pizza, 2 are remaining, right? Or we can say, Una raftan ma baqi, those left and the remainder. So it just means to remain. But the idea of remaining is to be everlasting. And fana is to be annihilated. So fana is a state that Sufis strive towards. When you become so encapsulated, let's say, by the love of God, you become so removed from the world, you reach such a high maqam or rank in tasawwuf station, I've heard it translated to, that when you die, you become annihilated, literally, and you become one with God. So after you die, you become united, a reunion, let's say, visal, with your lover, as it's said in Persian. And that's why Rumi's death is called wedding, or it means wedding. It's celebrated, because it's the ultimate union with the beloved, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is ultimately the goal of every Sufi. And it's called fana fi Allah. Rumi said that his life was in 3 stages. Kham budam, pokhte shudam, sukhtam, which means I was raw, I got cooked, I burned. And ultimately, the burning stage, the fana, is ascending to the highest rank of tasawwuf and reaching God. So, let's see. Do any of our poets speak to the injustice relevant to what we're seeing happen today against black people? Yes, that we do have that. It really depends. Someone like Hafez has a lot of poems about injustice because he lived in a tumultuous political time that was full of all kinds of problems. So I did actually translate a poem that Hafez wrote about being hopeful that injustice will end. I'll be posting that in the Patreon. I actually did post it in the Patreon supporters group chat. So for those of you who support on Patreon, you'll be added to a group chat where I post poems from the forthcoming book, so the book I'm working on, before they're available in the book form. They won't be going on the page for a couple reasons. One is then no one would get the book, to be straightforward. But the second reason is a logistical reason. It's difficult because the poems are like 15, 20 lines. On Instagram, the most you can fit is like 5 lines before it gets too small to read. So inshallah, yes, I've been translating ghazals by Hafez that speak about that. And I've been posting tidbits on Instagram, as you noticed a couple of the recent posts were about that. Can you please also explain the movement of the Whirling Dervishes? So I can generally just talk about zikr practices. So Sufis tend to have certain movements in their worship, and Rumi talks about this in his poetry a lot, because he kind of said that the legend is that he started this. I mean, to the extent that he did, Allahu Alam. But essentially, these practices and all these esoteric practices tend to be misunderstood by people. But they're part of this kind of ecstatic motion, this practice of, let's say, annihilating the self and trying to be one with the beloved, if that makes sense. Sometimes I feel like I'm lost for words to describe this, and ultimately I think you really need to see it and experience it. So many people go to Konya or Turkey and they just watch it in kind of this like tourist version. That's not the real deal. You really need to go to a zawi and experience kind of this Sufi, they say hadra or zikr or whatever you want to call it, and ultimately then you'll experience it. Because again, I said I'm at a loss for words. There's this common saying in Persian that tasawwuf is like a honey. You need to taste it to understand it. Imagine if you put a jar of honey or just explained it to someone. What is honey? It's thick, but not really thick. It runs, but it doesn't run. It's sweet, but it's milky and it has this texture. Khalas, like the Arabs say, they just have to taste it and then they'll know. You can explain honey a million ways, but until someone takes a spoonful, they'll know what it's like, then they'll understand. So ultimately, inshallah, we need to experience this ourselves. So, for real though, are you planning on making a book? Yes, for people who just came in, we are working on that at as fast a pace as we can. If you want that to happen, patreon.com/Persian Poetics. The link is in the bio. That'll really help the book get going, inshallah. What do you think about the book 40 Rules of Love? Okay, 40 Rules of Love, I think that when I criticize it, I get some pushback. People are kind of okay at this point with saying, yeah, Colin Barks is no good. I don't know why 40 Rules of Love, people are more willing to defend it. Maybe because the writer is a Turkish woman. One thing we need to consider is that, first of all, the book is fiction. It's not based on fact, right? It's a fictionalized book. Second of all, these books fall into the category of what I call native informants. So we have Khalid Hosseini, Alif Shafak, people like that. People who are from these countries, and they have like this they have this claim of legitimacy because, oh, I'm from this country, so I can write a book about this country and it's legit, right? But if we dissect these books, we find that they're really orientalizations of the home country. And you might ask, well, this person's from that country, why is it orientalist? A lot of times these people write these books, keep in mind they're diaspora. They don't live in that country anymore. Khalid Hosseini left Afghanistan when he was like 8. Not his fault, he left because of a war. Not saying that he left for some malicious reason. But for better or for worse, he doesn't understand it the way an Afghan person living in Kabul or Kandahar or Herat understands it. He's removed. The same way that I, living in here, away from Iran, I don't understand Iran the way maybe someone watching from Iran understands it, right? So these people are steeped in this diaspora, not being in there, living in the West mindset. And the second element is these people are not average members of their society. Alif Shafak, Khalid Hosseini, they're privileged, they're one percenters. They're coming from secular aspects of society or secular elements of their societies, right? They're not an average person. So we need to keep a grain of salt or take these with a grain of salt and understand that these books are not representative of those societies. Khalid Hosseini wrote a story. It comes with his own biases. He's represented Afghanistan in a way that maybe he thinks is correct. Most Afghans that I've met have had issue with the book. I would be happy to have an Afghan person come on my live, on my personal story, inshallah, or my personal page at Shia to talk about that. I would love to do that. I'm not an Afghan person, so I can't claim to speak for that experience. I would love to have someone of that origin speak. But as far as I can understand, these works are really not a good representation. And another issue is, a lot of times these are the book, right? So sometimes people only know Rumi via Colin Barks or 40 Rules of Love. Or sometimes people only know about Afghanistan, Khalid Hosseini's Kite Runner or whatever. I've met plenty of Afghan people who say, yeah, when I meet a random non-Afghan, they say, oh, I love the Kite Runner, you know. So it's an issue where one person who's not representative, who wasn't elected or anything, just creates really the narrative about a place. And, you know, I'd rather, again, talk about this page. I don't want people who came for the poetry to leave. But ultimately, these books, they really become something that they're not. If there was 100 novels in the Anglosphere about Afghanistan, and you could see kind of like from all aspects of society, from a Shia, a Sunni, a Hazara, a Persian, a Pashtun, a Khan, Kandahari, a Harati, a whatever, Kabuli, a rich, poor, expat, diaspora, whatever, pro-government, anti-government, pro-whatever, anti-whatever. If there was like a huge diversity and Khalid Hosseini was one, I would say, okay, he can say his thing and everyone else is saying their thing. It's a conversation. But Khalid Hosseini, Alif Shafak, whatever, they are the conversation. And this is the problem. So this is ultimately the issue I take with these. Inshallah, maybe we'll bring on my friend Zarar. He's more knowledgeable about these things on my personal account. We can maybe do a whole live about this. Okay, thank you so much. Someone said, I love your work. How do you deal with the grateful, toxic comments you get on your translations? Okay, this is actually something that kind of annoys me. A lot of the times, all of the hate on my translations are from people from our culture. Mostly from Iranis, really, is the most annoying thing. For some reason, first of all, Iranians think that they own Persian poetry. And I used to think like this before this page. They don't really know the extent to which Afghans, Indians, Pakistanis, Tajiks, people from all over the Muslim world, even Turks, people from all over the Arab world, whatever, read Persian poetry. So they kind of have this sense that we're the keepers and owners, right? We do speak Persian and we read them a lot, but we're one of many. But a lot of times they come in and they start nitpicking. Oh, in this poem, Rumi said every day, but you said every single day. Where did single come from? Oh, the word soda doesn't just mean this, it also means this. You should have put that. Or the word this means this as well. Why didn't you include that in the footnote? And I say, you know, with Colin Barks and Daniel Ladinsky and all these terrible translations, that, by the way, some of those people share on their profile. Someone will comment that your translation is slightly inaccurate, and I'll go on their profile and they'll have a Coleman Barks Rumi quote. So you have all these really Orientalist people doing what we say lashkhori in Persian, vulturing, ripping the flesh off of our culture, right? And swallowing it, eating it, and using it. And you don't speak out, but I have like one little thing and you come and cause a complaint. I don't know. We have this issue where we cannibalize ourselves, really, seriously. We tear each other down. But if the white man gives us a gaze, oh my God, a white man translated Rumi, Allahu Akbar, right? So a lot of times I got Persians, especially with the Rumis, when something DMing me, you're just a mullah, you're turning them all into sheikhs, they all hated Islam, they were atheists, you guys are all the same. And some guy literally said, started threatening me, calling me a Wahhabi, said, Kar ra be kardun besupar. He was saying, leave the work to the expert, referring to Coleman Barks. So, alhamdulillah, all the haters are, it seems like they're really just Persians. But inshallah, you know, they're one amongst a crowd of all you beautiful people who support this page. And I'm really, really indebted to you guys. The only thing the West wants to like about the Middle East is the harems and the sourcing and the magic. Yep, that's true. Suggest some Sufi books. For those of you who have access to Islamic languages, that is, if you know Persian, Arabic, Turkish, Urdu, I would suggest getting to the Masnavi is a really good one. That's probably the number one thing. If someone's going to only get into one thing, I would say get into the Masnavi. And if you live in Pakistan, India, something, find a traditional setting to read it, I would say. If there's like a local sheikh or like a Sufi center or something, or a Masnavi reading, go to it. Are you affiliated to a tariqah? Yes, I am in the Qadiriya tariqah, Inchaallah. Are you Afghan? No, but I love Afghans. If anything, I feel like Afghanistan has really been sorely ignored by Iranians. You know, Iranians think that Afghans are this like group of people who live adjacent to them. Actually, you know, I should speak a little bit about this. When I lived in Tehran, our neighbor was an Afghan man, and I really loved him. And I was so saddened and just frustrated by the racism that he faced in the neighborhood. It wasn't always open. Sometimes it was just comments people would make to each other. And I remember one time I actually came to a head where there was something stolen from a car in our neighborhood, and the whole neighborhood was convinced that he had stolen it. And they all were essentially gathering to accuse him. And that really broke my heart. You know, I feel like a lot of the things I learned about Islam and my dress, my clothing, my connection to this cultural clothing, I did inherit it from the Afghans. And I'm really indebted to Afghans. So Karim, our neighbor, you know, when he moved away from our neighbor and I lost track of him. I was a child when we lived together, so I had no way of keeping track of him. But you know, this clothing and this turban, I learned how to tie it and wear it. Afghan brothers introduced me, and you know, our poetry in Afghanistan, the accent of Persian they speak is actually more original. It's more old school. A lot of people, because of nationalism, they fight the Dari Persian, whatever. Dari Persian, however you want to call it, the Persian that they speak in Afghanistan is actually closer to the original Persian of these texts. It's more conservative dialect. The clothing is closer. So that's not to say in Iran we've forgotten it. You know, we still know Persian. We still have kept our culture as well. But I think Afghans in a way, they are really holding strong to this culture. And we're, as Persian people generally, other Afghan, Iranian, Tajik, whatever, we're really indebted to the preservation that they've done of these clothes, of this, the dialect, things like that. So I am not Afghan, but I love Afghans, and Mohammed, we're all from one root and soil. So Inchaallah, we're all one. And much love to my Afghan people. Yes, please suggest some Sufi books. I would just say the Masnavi. Start with the Masnavi. And if you're more interested in like a technical understanding of Sufism, there's, Kashf al-Mahjub and Gulshan al-Raz. There's some like books that are more written as like a fiqh book. Well, not really fiqh, but it's kind of like a studying book where it's less fun to read. But I think the Masnavi is a good way to start. I'm guessing you talk a lot. Yes, I do talk a lot. How is Shia Sufi different from Sunni Sufi? So at the risk of causing an argument in the comments, basically anyone can be a Sufi, and there's Sufis from all fiqh understanding. So there's this idea that there's Sharia and there's Tariqah, and they're like two wings on a bird that flap. Or you can say one is the water and one is the boat. So a Tariqah would be a path. So Al-Qadiriyya, Al-Naqshbandiyya, Chishtiyya, whatever, there's probably hundreds of them in total. And that's one thing. And that's the inner path. And the Sharia is the outer. So the Sharia dictates how you pray, whether you pray like this or holding your hands down, or whether you use a turba or whether you don't, or what time, or if you say Ameen or if you don't say Ameen, or the ahkam on fasting, all like the rules that are the actions of Islam, that's the Sharia. So you follow a school of thought, Hanafi, Hanbali, Shafi, Maliki, Zaydi, Ja'fari, whatever madhab you follow, that would make you Shia or Sunni. But the tariqah that you follow is what makes you a Sufi. So in the Qadiriyya tariqah, there's people who have Ja'fariyya fiqh, who you would call Shia. And there's people with Hanafi fiqh and Shafi fiqh and Hanbali fiqh. But ultimately, my ustads have told me tasawwuf is about the inner path. The farther along in tasawwuf you get, the less that Shia, Sunni, whatever, that stuff matters. Wallahi, in Shia and Sufi centers, I have seen almost no talk of sectarianism. And at any zawiyah you go to, there could be Shia, Sunni, even a Christian person could come and attend, right? No one cares because we're worried about the inner path, we're worried about our Lord. We're not worried about these little differences. Yeah, of course, there's differences in fiqh, and the fuqaha speak about that, of course, and we respect one another. But ultimately, it doesn't descend into sectarianism. That is absolutely prohibited in tasawwuf. And Sufis who, inshallah, are finding the true spirit of tasawwuf will not descend into the ugliness of sectarianism. Thank you so much for someone said sweet fit. Thank you. Tasawwuf and Sharia go hand in hand. Yes, inshallah, they do. Can anyone be a Sufi? Yes, anyone, inshallah, if God wants, they can be a Sufi. Can you suggest a very accurate translation of the Quran? I've heard good things about the study Quran by Ustad Hussein Nas. There are some criticisms of it as well, and there are a couple others out there. I'm not really the best person to consult because I'm not completely fluent in Arabic enough to be able to discern which is better. I still need to read the Quran with a Persian translation in case I get lost somewhere. Hi, I'm writing from Turkey. Welcome. Merhaba. And curious about how Rumi is perceived in USA. Rumi is really liked in America, but kind of for the wrong reasons. But inshallah, we're going to work on that. But generally speaking, people see that Rumi, see Rumi as a wise figure, one of the old sages. They I feel like they see him in the same category as people like Socrates and Plato and other philosophers. I think they kind of just see him as one of the greats philosophers. They don't really see him in the Islamic context. He's kind of been ripped out of that, unfortunately. Salam Meri Thank you so much for the nice comments. What do you think of 40 Rules of Love? I talked about it inshallah in the recording. You can see the full breakdown. Not really a fan. Can you suggest some resources you can recommend to learn about Sufism? It really depends. If you're living in a diaspora or in a Western country, in a big city with a population, there should be some Sufi centers around you. Or at the very least, Sufis in the area. Google, Sufi center, Sufis put your city. If you're living in a Muslim country, amazing. There's definitely Sufis here and there that you can meet and talk to and get into a halqa. Again, the best thing is Sufism is a tradition that's passed on in person. So even people who begin in countries where there's no Sufis in person, they always end up usually traveling and meeting and studying with Sufis in person. But if there's literally nothing, then you can just begin by reading books, inshallah, and we can maybe talk more in lives like this. Please save this. Yes, it will be saved. Sufism or Tasawwuf cannot be learned. So this is a good, interesting distinction. Sufism, they say it's a transfer from the heart. You know, it's not like something that you can study. Like you can't just pick up a book and read it and then say like, I got a PhD in Sufism, right? So Rumi has this quatrain, maybe I'll translate it and post it because of this live, where he essentially says, "An ilmi ke dar madarat hasil kardan," something like that, "Chizi digar ast va in ishq chizi digar ast." So he's saying that ilm, that knowledge, you know, they say the seeker of knowledge in English, that ilm, the Islamic knowledge, the fiqh that they taught in the madrasa is something else, and this love is something else. So ultimately, yes, you can learn all the facts about Sufism, like read the books, but you need to really feel it in order to be a good Sufi, let's say. Please say this, it will be saved. Thank you so much for the nice comments, everyone. Now I just started to search of his life. If you can suggest a video or some visual source. If you mean Maulana Rumi, I think that's what's meant. We actually don't really know much about his life. I feel like he wrote an early biography. I don't know if it's in English about his life. That's considered the most accurate run. Let's see. Thank you, Zainab, for the nice comment. Thank you for being a viewer. Love your page. Thank you so much for all the nice comments. Can Sufism be seen as a more orthodox Islam? See, it really depends on the definitions, how you define these things. Sufism is definitely within Orthodox Islam. I think people viewing Sufism as like a heresy or outside of Islam, as a separate religion even sometimes, I think this is kind of a new understanding, like a post-colonization, post-secular world understanding. So Sufism is part of Orthodox Islam in the sense that it's been there from the beginning and it was always there. But as far as the level to which it's Orthodox, so there are some people who for them Sufism is just reflection and meditation and doing zikr after prayer. And to some people, you know, they're spinning and dancing and rituals and even other rituals that are done in private because, you know, they're considered not fit for the average non-Sufi person, right? Ultimately, it depends on what you consider your Sufism is. I mean, some stuff is definitely not orthodox. You know, the average Muslim would see, okay, I don't approve of this. And some stuff, you know, like dhikr, I think sitting in a circle and saying La ilaha illallah as a group, I think only really Salafi inclined people would consider that not appropriate, right? I feel like everyone's okay with that. Have you read Iqbal? Yes, I have read Iqbal. Iqbal is not my Arab expertise, though. If you want to look at Zirar, Z-I-R-R-A-R, Z-I-R-R-A-R, I'm working on Rumi was Muslim with him. His @ is in the bio of that account. He's working on Zirar right now, or on Iqbal right now, Inchaallah. I'm Persian living in Pakistan. All right, great. Some of the people living in Pakistan, maybe if you know Persian, you could you can help them learn, Inchaallah. Let's see. Thank you so much for the nice comment from Kashmir. My love to everyone in Kashmir. Do you recognize the different accent of Pakistanis speaking Farsi? Yes, so I've noticed that Pakistanis speak Farsi like Afghans in interesting ways in a more classical way. Iranian Persians, especially Tehranis, my accent, we've kind of lost some of the classical elements of Persian. So for example, the letter waw, we dropped it. It's a V now. So the words like khabidan, sleeping, khab, it's khwab, khwabidan, but Pakistanis and Afghans who speak Persian are more likely to preserve these older vowels. If you look at the account @words in Persian, Inchaallah, I'll link to them. They talk about some of this stuff in their posts and their etymologies. It's run by an Iranian and a Pakistani, and they kind of actually break this down. It's really nice, actually. Let's see. To those who say Sufism is bid'ah, it really depends, again, how you're defining Sufism. If you mean strictly just focusing on yourself and doing dhikr, then I feel like even a Salafi would say it's not bid'ah, right? Even some Salafi scholars like Asam al-Hakim say that if for you Sufism is just dhikr and focusing on the self and detaching from the dunya, then that's fine. But as far as forming tariqas and different practices, again, it'll have to be more specific. But I would say generally anyone who says Sufism is bid'ah, or Shia or whatever, or this group or whatever, anyone who just makes like a hukam am, as we'd say in fiqh, like a generalized ruling, I think that's a misguided thing to say. Rumi and Masnavi brought me back to life. I'm really happy to hear that. Thank you so much. They said we support you. Thank you so much. I'm indebted to your support. I have read Iqbal's work. Again, Zirar is doing work on that. It's not my area of expertise. I think that unlike other poets, when you can kind of read a poem and get something from it, you really need to take Iqbal as a whole. So anyone can really read a ghazal from Hafez and kind of enjoy it, the basic stuff there. But you can't really read Iqbal without understanding his khudi and his context and I don't know, Nietzsche and Rumi. So I feel like before I can get into Iqbal, I really need to cement my understanding of Rumi and the post-colonial world, Inchaallah, slowly, and then maybe get in. Iqbal, again, his writing it's like philosophy in poetry, right? It's not just poetry. So it's hard. You can't just open up a page and say, okay, I read Iqbal. You really need to dig in as if you were reading philosophy. So just like you couldn't take like a book of philosophy and flip in the middle and say this page and read it, you can't do that with Iqbal the same way. So with Hafez, again, Iranians, not to degrade him, it's just different. It's just poetry. You can open up a random page, and Iranians do this. They call it follow Hafez. They open a random page of Hafez and they flip and they just start reading. Beside Jam on Ga, right? And you can read that, right? You can get it. But Iqbal's writing, I think, and I've tried, it's really not like this. You can't go on ganjur.net and just pick a poem and read it and understand it. So it really does require a level above what I'm at right now. Okay. Do you think such translations are a lack of understanding the subtle differences, or is it part of a systematic approach by which Orientals try to control social hegemony? Okay. I think on an individual basis, it's understanding, misunderstanding. So for example, someone like Coleman Barks, I don't think he opened Rumi and said, let me change this around and ruin it. I think he actually thought that he was doing a service and that he was helping people understand Rumi better. I think he sees himself as a student or something of Rumi. So I don't think that someone like him is going in saying, yeah, I'm going to, mess this up on purpose. I think if anything, if I don't know how aware he is of social media, if he saw the thread, that he might be really upset. And I kind of feel bad in a way. He's just an old man. So not to say that he is like, has like this bad intention, let's say we have husn advan, hopefully he has the best of intentions. But I think ultimately these people are part of a general milieu, a zeitgeist, a culture. They're steeped in, right? Their Islamophobia, their Orientalism. It's not like, again, he thought that. I think he thinks he likes Islam, but when you come from that culture, it's steeped in almost. Like think about, we can maybe tie it to the dunya, anti-blackness, right? When I think of myself, I don't think I'm racist. I would hope I'm not racist. But deep down in my head, there is ingrained sentiments about every race, including black people. So I wouldn't say I'm actively racist. Of course not. I hope not, right? I hope no one is. But in my head, do I have biases? Of course. Every human has a bias. So when it comes to someone like Coleman Barks translating Rumi, again, I don't think he's actively Islamophobic. But every person in the West, especially of his generation, keep in mind, he's raised in the 50s and 60s, right? And all throughout the 70s and 80s and 90s, the worst Islamophobic decades we've seen. That's got to be steeped in there, right? So I can't speak about him. I've never talked to him. That's just my assumption. But generally speaking, so I would say that the early Orientalists, yes, they did have an actual bad intention. I think they genuinely did have a bad intention. But people in this context, they're just suffering from the biases that their ancestors have seeped in. People have asked a couple of times about Dr. Omid Safi. I don't know about him. As the small interactions, or not really interactions, but the things I've seen from him online, I don't know enough about him to comment on him, unfortunately. شكرا لجهدك الله يوفقك. شكرا كثير. السلام عليكم لكل متكلمين اللغة العربية. شكرا كثير. إذا في حدا عربي بده يكتب باللغة العربية اگر هم فارسی زبان هست میتونید به فارسی کامنت بذارید. فضلوا اكتبوا بأي لغة بدكم. Let's see. So I'm getting some repeat questions. If I ignore your question, it's not on purpose. Just go back and listen. It'll be answered, inshallah. Can you publish this book in volumes or parts? Okay, so this is something I've thought about a lot. I want to avoid breaking it down. I'd rather just be like, here's the book. But at the same time, I know people want something to come out. So right now I'm thinking about a way to reconcile releasing it as a whole and also releasing something that's more digestible. So my thought right now is that there would be like a selected poems version with maybe 500 poems. And then in a few months after that, or 6 months, there'd be like the whole version with all 2,000. So if someone wants to just give a gift or someone wants to just read something like the nice ones, let's say, they can read the selected. And if they want to read everything, they can read the 2,000. That's in the works right now. I'm figuring out that. I'm figuring out how to design the book, whatever, the publishing method, everything. If you noticed, I posted a story if anyone's experienced. Everything about that is in the works right now. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, shukran akhuya. I love your work. Thank you so much. Wow, that really means a lot. What does being a practicing Sufi entail? So first of all, what I would say is, it entails being a good Muslim generally. So before you embark on, that's what the teachers always say, before you embark on Sufism, get your deen on point. So that's one thing about joining a Sufi tariqah, again, which kind of confuses me about a lot of people thinking that like Sufism isn't even Islam. When you want to join a tariqah, a lot of times you have to do what's called a chille, which means a 40. And that essentially is either 40 days, it used to be, now it's less common for various dunyawi reasons, unfortunately, 40 days of seclusion. But sometimes it can entail, some tariqahs is 40 days of doing all your fara'id, your wajibat, all the things that we say for non-Arabic or Urdu, English, Persian speakers. It's the things you have to do in Islam, prayer, fasting, whatever it may be in that 40-day period, doing them all on time and correctly. Then you ascend to being a murid and you get a wird, which is a certain amount of dhikrs, adhkar that you have to do. So to be a practicing Sufi, first you need to try to be a good Muslim. And I don't mean, yes, of course, praying and all that, but also be a good person, have a good heart, treat others well, represent Islam well, live up to, just the standards of being a good person. Try to do khidmah, which means, try to do service to your fellow Muslims, your fellow humans, your deen, etc. Be a good person. And then inshallah, once you take on the Sufi path, whatever path that may be, following the instructions of your teachers, inshallah, if they're rightly guided people, if that's what you see them as and you follow them, to just try to be a good person and follow the teachings of Jalaluddin Rumi and all the other great Sufis of days past. Thank you so much. I appreciate Amir Khan. Thank you. I understand, but some schools of Islam believe Sufism is shirk because we seek the love of God from a sheikh. This is kind of like a fiqhi debate. Maybe inshallah on my personal page I can do like a live with this, bring on some shuyukh and talk about it. I don't think I can really give enough time in this live, let's say. Read up on tasawwuf and wasila. Yes, if anyone's interested, you can look up wasila, istimdad, istiqatha. You can see a debate. I saw a great debate actually between a more Salafi, he self-identified, not to label him, he self-identified as a Salafi or Ahl Hadith, and a Sufi sheikh. It was like a 5-hour debate. For those who are fiqh inclined and know a bit of Arabic, that's on YouTube. Thank you so much. Can you give us more details about your tariqah? Yeah, my tariqah is descendant of the Qadiriyya tariqah. It's not so important what sub-silsila it is. Are there tariqahs native to Iran? As far as what's native, and it depends how you define Iran. Let's just say Persian, for example. Sheikh Naqshband, Qaddasallah Sirr, is Persian. Abdul Qadir al-Gailani is Persian. I think Mu'ayyinuddin Chishti might be Persian. He's from modern-day Afghanistan. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. Maybe correct me. Jalaluddin Rumi is Persian. So as far as being native to Iran's borders, they're like Abdul Qadir al-Gailani, Qaddasallah Sirr kullahum. I don't want to be disrespectful, but they're all buried in Turkey and Uzbekistan and Baghdad, and that's for various reasons. They migrated, the borders of Iran's changed. But as far as being native to the hearts of Iranians, yes, those people, they're alive in our hearts, let's say. But as far as native to Iran today, Sadi Shirazi, Hafez Shirazi, they're not really tariqas, but they're Sufi thinkers, maybe you could say. They're buried there. Shah Nematullah Vali is buried there. Bayazid Bastami, Abu Sa'id Awal Khair is buried there. Sheikh Bahai is buried there. I mean, there's so many countless tariqas and silsilas that either via location or via burial, whatever, they're found in Iran. So yeah, Sufism is native to Iran. There's tons of Sufis in Iran. It's very much a part of the culture. Even as the country transitioned into being a Shia country, the Sufi traditions still remain. What is the difference between Dari Farsi and, let's say, standard Farsi? The difference is an accent. So if I were to overhear two men from Afghanistan speaking in the bus in Tehran, maybe I wouldn't understand unless I listened really closely. But if I say, hey gentlemen, how are you? And they spoke to me, we could all speak just fine. It's kind of like the dialects of Arabic, let's say. So the difference is as great as the accent gets. So if you're just speaking to your family members in your language, let's say, you might be speaking very colloquially, using phrases and words that may be local to your neighborhood, really, or just a part of your city or the city. Maybe not even just the broader dialect. But can we speak to each other? Yes. So the degree is ultimately how much do you accommodate one another and how formally are you speaking. If I listen to news from Afghanistan, BBC Dari, whatever, I can understand a newscaster. If I read comments from Afghanistan written, yeah, I can understand it. But when they speak quickly, I have to listen very closely because the accent, the slang, the intonation, the kind of the shared contextual knowledge that they have. But no, generally, if we interact with one another, we'll be fine, especially the more we interact. Hello, some ash'ar from my sheikh in Farsi and Arabic. Can you help me translate them? Inshallah, if you go on PersianPoetics.com, that's Persian Poetics, literally just the at of the page.com. There's a submissions section. You can submit poems that get translated there. Thank you so much for your nice comments. I appreciate you. What's a zawi? A zawiya is another, it's an Arabic word. It means corner, literally in Arabic, but it's like a word for khanaqah or dargah, basically. I spoke about Alif Shafak to the person who asked. You can just go back and, inshallah, in the IGTV. Spoke about that. More people are asking. Thank you so much for the username Amber. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Why and how did poetry develop in human history? You know, I haven't read about this, but my theory would be that as humans developed speaking generally, they realized that words rhyme. So maybe like way after languages were developed, people realized that certain words just rhymed, and certain people realized that if they used it in speech, it would be more compelling. I think what we would call today spoken word poetry is probably the oldest form of poetry. You can imagine someone who's very eloquent back in the day giving a speech to maybe his other cave residents, you know, cave people, and he's saying, hey, this, that, and then he rhymed, and they thought, oh, that's cool. Maybe someone tried to rebut him. So maybe via like rap battling, as we would say, is how poetry began. And then as writing happened, then, you know, they just wrote it down. Let's see. Hello, everyone, saying hi. Thank you so much for everyone's nice comments that aren't direct questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the nice comments. There's too many to respond individually to every single one, but I'm reading them all and I appreciate them. Can you please translate Allama Iqbal's? So my friend Zarar is working on Allama Iqbal, inshallah ta'ala. So please direct questions or requests to him, inshallah, and check out his work and please support his work as well. I've got the Oxford Classic version of the Masnavi, but it's hard to read. Yes, the Masnavi is hard to read in the Oxford Classic version because English is kind of like a wordy language sometimes. In the original Persian, it's much easier and flowing in rhyme. If you speak Urdu or Arabic or something, you can maybe try to find it in the original. A way to do it would be to get the Alan Williams version as well, and you could read them together. So if it doesn't make sense, you can kind of refer. Inshallah, I'll be doing more videos about the Masnavi. I'm going to upload one soon, actually, to my personal YouTube channel, and I'll link you guys to that. Are there any other accurate translations of Rumi other than the Masnavi translation? Yes, but are they useful to you would be the question. So for example, Nicholson translated the entire Masnavi, but it's so dense and academic, it's really useless for someone who's not using it with the Persian. So if you're just trying to read Nicholson, that wouldn't be good. You would need it with the Persian as a guide. As well as this commentary, it has translations as well. The Quatrains of Rumi by Ibrahim Gamard. If you guys could see, he's translated the couplets, but I don't know if anyone can read this. But it's so dense and kind of hard to get through that it's really kind of useless unless you're like me, you're just using it as a commentary on the original. As far as translating into rhymes that are fun to read, I would say Jawad Mujaddidi has the Masnavi, and I unfortunately really can't think of any. If someone knows of any, please DM me or type them in the comments. That's ultimately why I'm trying to work on this. There's really not enough. There's almost none, especially if you can compare it to the huge amount of awful translations available. Not just the Orientalized ones, by the way. There's a lot of translations done by even fluent Persian speakers, but they're just really no good, unfortunately. I mean, with all due respect to their efforts. Have you read Kashf al-Mahjub? Just a little bit, not enough of it. Thank you so much, Sohrab Jan. This means so much hearing from you. Thank you so much. Much love to all my Afghan fam. We're all one. Say no to racism, not just the anti-black racism. I see too many Iranian Americans saying, oh, black people shouldn't be oppressed against, you know, white people need to stop on social media jumping on the bandwagon. This is a challenge to all my Iranian family on everywhere in the world. Stand up against anti-Afghan racism, anti-Afghan sentiment within the Iranian community. And I don't just mean the overt, terrible kind that's done by people in power in Iran. I won't get too political, but not that stuff, just that stuff, because that exists as well. You know, they're being disallowed from going to schools, they're being denied citizenship, the disenfranchisement, that is wrong as well. But also against the people in your community, your family. If an Iranian says, well, Afghani hub, Falan, you know, all these Afghans, call them out. Say, no, that's not okay. They're your brothers in faith. They speak your religion. They're from the same roots as you. Do not accept that. That is completely unacceptable. So, inshallah, we'll be doing taghrib, as we say in Arabic. We'll be getting closer together as opposed to farther apart. Is there any difference between Shia and Sunni Sufi? So if a Shia and a Sunni, like in our tariqah, for example, there's Shia and Sunni murids in the same zawiyah, same khanaqah. The difference is their fiqh. So the spiritual path, they're on the same path, but the fiqh is different. So let's say in our spiritual path, we fast, but maybe the time I break my fast is 10 minutes different than him. But it's the same spiritual path. It's just that the exterior is slightly different. So ultimately, the differences amount to exteriors. Now, I don't want to get too sectarian, but some of the issues that draw differences between Shias and Sunnis, like the cursing, and I don't want to get too into it, but you know, the issues that we are all aware of, unfortunately, those don't exist in Tasawwuf. There's none of that. People who are Sufi inclined, they're not worried about fighting with one another, right? They're already past that stuff. So inshallah, we can all be past that stuff. But no, you won't really see any difference being made about like in my Sufi center in Amman, where I would go do zikr, we had a guy who was a mu'ammam. He had earned a turban of scholarship in the Shia seminaries of Iraq, and he was there worshiping. And we had people who were shuyukh from the Hanafi or Shafi'i madhab. No one cared. No one had any problem. We prayed together. We worshiped together. No one had any issues. So inshallah will remain that way. Do you read the poetry of Hazrat Sultan Bahu? No, but if it's in Persian or available in a good translation or in Arabic or some way that I can understand, I would like to read it. Where are you from? I answered this, but I feel like people keep asking. I'm Iranian American. My parents are of Persian and Turkic backgrounds, respectively. This means a lot. Thank you. Thank you to my Afghan viewers. I love you. Here's thank you so much. I really appreciate the snuggling bucolic. That means a lot. Right. So someone mentioned brother. Shah Reza Pahlavi had his toll on Iranian culture while Afghanistan didn't have one Orientalist rule. That is true. That's a very good point. Part of the reasons that Iranians and Afghans have diverged, Iranians have become westernized and kind of left the traditional stuff like the shirt, the pirhan, and the turban, is part of Reza Shah's purposeful or secularizing and westernizing Iran. So Iranians used to dress like this, right? So we wore this. And Reza Shah banned this turban, my great-grandfather used to wear a turban, but they banned it because they wanted to be secular, right? They made them wear Western-style hats that were popular at the time. And this is why I feel indebted to my Afghan family, who have actually preserved this, because if they didn't preserve this, God knows where I would get this from or where this would come from, right? So Reza Shah did a lot of damage to Iran, and I've actually read that he wanted to change the script, like in Turkey, to the Western script, which just would have been such a tragedy. But they're saying that certain elements within Iran, won't get into it, prevented that, certain religious elements. So we really have had so much damage. And it's painful for me to see Iranians, they worship Reza Shah. Yes, he did great things. He built roads and all that stuff. He did what any ruler modernizing the country did, and that's good. But the damage, the cultural damage he did to the country, I feel like is immeasurable. So someone said, you look so Herati. Thank you. I would hope to like Herati. It looks beautiful. One of my good friends in Iran is actually from Herat. Where should one buy the authentic Masnavi from? If you want to buy it in Persian, any edition should be fine that's commonly sold. If you want it in English, Javed Mujaddidi, Jawid Mojaddedi. If someone can also type that in for those who didn't just memorize or write that down. I think it was typed in earlier. I'll link to it, inshallah. He has a great translation. He's Afghan origin, speaks Persian as his native language, is a professor at Rutgers here, and he's doing a great translation. Let's see. Durud bar shoma dost aziz. The four main branches are Qadiri, Naqshbandi, Sohradi, and Chashti. Yeah, that's most of them. Thank you so much, Muslima.Rose. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Amir Khan Amir. I really appreciate it, man. That really means a lot. The main awliya, I'll mention Sharia and Tariqah. Exactly, yeah. Sharia and Tariqah, like we said, are two wings on a bird. They're stuck together. Why in Pakistan mostly people don't respect awliya and holy people even though they're Muslim? Okay, I've never been to Pakistan, unfortunately. Inshallah, I'd love to travel once Corona ends and meet everyone who's there. I don't know specifically about Pakistan, so I'll not comment. Inshallah, someone in Pakistan or from Pakistan can reply to this maybe. But just generally, I think in Islam, we're going through kind of a crisis of a lot of different things are happening to our traditional understanding of the religion, and we're kind of departing from our traditional understanding. Now some people are saying it's kufr or shirk or whatever to invoke the name of Waliullah, the awliya. So, inshallah, God save us from the shadow of sectarianism and all these issues that we're going through. But we're going through some problems now, and we're getting these mindsets where people say, don't call it for istighatha or istimdad from the awliya. This is haram. With all due respect to the different fiqh opinions, I tend to disagree. Okay, the time is running out. I'm going to inshallah do another live. If your question didn't get answered so far, please just re-ask it in the comments, because this got to an hour. Oh my god, there's so many, I can't get to all of these. I'm so sorry. Everyone who typed it and I didn't get to it, you're just going to have to retype it. I'm really sorry. There's like 100 that I'm scrolling through. So please just jump on the very next live video and ask. All right, assalamu alaikum. Unfortunately, there's a 1 hour time limit on lives now. I didn't think that was there before, but there is now. So we got kicked out of the last one. Fortunately, there was a ton of good comments in the questions in the comments that I didn't get to answer. So inshallah, about the 50 or 100 comments or whatever they were, just please re-ask them and I'll try to get to them as much as I can. So go ahead and begin commenting again. Anyone, I apologize for those coming in. The live got cut off because of the time. There was a ton of comments. I really want to get to all the questions and answer everyone's questions. So please just re-comment them if I didn't get to your question. My apologies. So assalamu alaikum to everyone joining. Can you please repeat the name of the debate you mentioned? I don't remember. I think the name of the sheikh, I think he's well known in the UK. It's Asrar Rashid or Asrar Rashid. Just look up, not endorsing this labeling, by the way, but look up the title like Wahhabi versus Sunni debate, istighatha or something like that. Can you elaborate on the secularization that followed Reza Shah's regime? Yeah, basically Reza Shah was following an Ataturkian type of plan to make Iran a westernized country. He's coming from this like self-hating perspective in a way. Not to hate on him too much. He was just a product of his time, but just saying how I see it. And even if you go to Taksim Square, I think the only standing Reza Shah statue in the world is in Taksim Square in Istanbul. He's standing right to the left of Ataturk and the side facing Hafez Mustafa, where Ataturk is doing like a tour of Turkey, and Reza Shah was his main guest, let's say. And I think really Reza Shah was taking notes from Ataturk. He banned the hijab, he banned traditional clothing, he banned the turban, that I've reclaimed now, alhamdulillah, with the help of Afghans. But he tried to ban local languages. That was kind of more difficult to do. It didn't work out, alhamdulillah. There's talk that he might have thought about changing the script. I don't know how true that is, but basically he wanted to rapidly change the character of Iran from what he saw was a backwards, not put together country, tribal country, into a modern nation state. So again, not trying to hate too much. Those are just my criticisms. Of course, he also did, like any ruler, he had good and bad. Some Iranians really like him. All respect to them. I'm not going to hate on them just because they like him, but that's just my view. Assalamu alaikum to everyone joining. Thank you to everyone showing love, sending heart emojis. Again, I'm sorry, your question, the comment feed is refreshed, so if your question gets answered, please just re-ask it. Why Qawwali music is more common in Chishi Silsa as compared to Silsa like Naqshbandi? This is interesting. Some people say that Amir Khosrow invented Qawwali. The extent to which that's true, I don't know. As far as what practices happen, this is kind of like a tradition thing. So the Mevlevis have spinning, other tariqas have like a movement that's like this. Some spin in one location, some move up and down, some chant, some lean, some go side to side. Every tariqa has its own basically form of dhikr or community worship. I can't really comment as to why or how these develop. It was spread down from sheikh to sheikh, and this is what we've inherited. So as far as why they do it, I don't know. So maybe someone who's from South Asia can elaborate on that in the comments. Please comment on Amir Khosrow and Bidal Dehlavi. They're two amazing poets that are unfortunately overlooked by Iranians because they're geographically associated with South Asia. Nationalism has really cut us apart from each other. It's very sad. Have you read Amir Khosrow? Yes, I love him. He says he has a really beautiful poem that says, Kafir ishqam, Musalmani maro dar kar nist. هر رگ من تار گشته حاجت زنار نیست از بالینم برخیز ای نادان طبیب بیمار عشق را به جز دیدار دوا نیست, or something like that. So he has beautiful poems. That's probably one of my favorite poems of all time. Where can I read about the relationship between Khosrow and Nizamuddin Awliya? I'm not sure. I'm not very well read, unfortunately, about the South Asian side of Sufism. Someone could please comment and respond to that if they're here. What about the metaphor of wine in Sufi poetry? This is a good question. So, a lot of people take issue with this. I think it's because it's translated with no explanation. Basically, Sufism has a lot of heterodox metaphors, right? And heterodox kind of means it's the opposite of orthodox, non-orthodox metaphor. So normally you would think, oh, wine's prohibited. Why would a Muslim talk about wine? You would think it just wouldn't even show up, especially not in a religious context, right? But Sufism kind of has, part of the beauty is it plays with things that are normally prohibited, right? To make a point. So Rumi's Masnavi has elements that reference even human sexuality, right? Or he talks about pee and poop and things like that, things that we wouldn't consider. Why would that be in a religious book? But sometimes they use humorous things that are taboo. Sometimes things are just generally taboo to make a point, generally. And also certain metaphors are meaningful. Wine has existed in every society. There's been drunkards or people who drink in every society. And people know that drinking is kind of this like state when someone is drunk that they're not in control of themselves. They feel like there's something else or they're in another state. And other than, feeling attached to God is the highest state of that. But the only thing below it is alcohol, right? The only thing other than being in a state of, of dhikr, of being really taken by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is alcohol. For someone who hasn't done that, they can maybe relate to, I drank once and I felt crazy and I was out of this world and things like that. So maybe by using a metaphor like that, they can kind of almost explain that feeling, which is unexplainable, right? Almost the way I said tasawwuf is unexplainable. The feeling of being with God maybe is unexplainable, but maybe they can use wine as a metaphor to just help us understand. That's not necessarily saying they drink. Rumi, I have it on RumiWasMuslim.com, has many quotes where he says, this is not literal wine. Do not misinterpret this. Do not drink and then the sin can be on my neck because you thought I told you to drink. Do not literally drink, right? This is just a metaphor. So that's ultimately what it is in a Sufi context as far as wine is concerned. Thoughts on music for ibadah, like the Chishtiya. Music has generally been a part of tasawwuf tradition, but certain things like the drums are allowed. They're generally considered allowed. Even people with a really strict like Salafi view of Islam, say the deaf, for example, that I have is allowed. Okay, marhaba. My mother is from near Tabriz and my dad is from Iraq, central Iran. I have Tabrizi origin, let's say. This is a good one. What do you make of Rumi's quote where he states he's not Muslim, Hindu, Christian of any one place? This is actually an improperly attributed quote. Scholars have shown that this is not actually written by Rumi. How would you contrast the Persian of Rumi and Hafez against Amir Khosrow Iqbal? Okay, that's really interesting. There's different sabks, as we say. Sabk, it's hard to add S at the end of that. Sabk really means like style, let's say, or genre of Persian poetry. There is Sabk Hindi and Khorasan and Iraqi and all that. There's like a lot of them, right? Hafez has his own sabk, really, I would say. They call him the I think it's called Sabk Iraqi. He counts. I'm not an expert on this, and there's some people that take issue with this classification altogether. But generally, let's say Hafez has his own style. Hafez is super dense. Even for me, still, I reread the same line 3 times to understand it, and then I check a commentary and look at the vowels, and then I understand it. Versus Rumi, he wasn't going for that at all. He's super simple. Like his Persian is very straightforward. Aside from elements that are archaic, it's a very simple text. Bishno az ne cho hekayat mikonad, az jodaya shakayat mikonad, ke cho maro beboridand az niyestan, whatever. Like anyone can understand that. There's no doubt. There's no aham. There's no double meanings, triple meanings, subtext. He's speaking very straightforward. Amir Khosrow is kind of like between Hafez and Rumi. He's not as difficult to understand as Rumi, not as simple as, or not as difficult as Hafez, not as simple as Rumi. Iqbal can be kind of hard to understand sometimes, but I think that's just the complexity of his ideas. Where do you live? I was living in Jordan. Right now I'm waiting out this quarantine in the United States. I think I'm going to be moving to Turkey, actually, Inchaallah, if I can. The cost of living there is quite lower than here, and it's a better spiritual environment, Inchaallah, to focus on this project. And I think the person asking is actually from Turkey, so maybe we can meet. Let's see. Do you think Shams Tabriz was murdered? That's really not well known. Aflaki, I actually would like to see what Aflaki had to say about that. But some people say it was murdered by jealous former Murids, or let's say Murids of Maulana before he met Shams. That's a possibility. It could be that he just disappeared or died. How is following a sheikh different from taqleed, which is frowned upon? I think that the average Muslim in their fiqh should probably do taqleed. Maybe not in aqidah, but I don't know why taqleed is frowned upon. Maybe this is like, again, the influence of Salafism, but generally speaking, Muslims understood that someone should have a madhab, Hanafi, Hanbali, Shafi, whatever. And the Shias, actually, the Jafaris, taqleed, I think, is wajib for them. Someone who follows that fiqh, please correct me if I'm wrong, but they have to have a marja, which is essentially a sheikh that gives them their rulings. And tasannun, there is this similar idea in Sunni Islam that you should have you should follow your rulings from a learned sheikh. The average person, especially someone who doesn't know Arabic, doesn't know the languages of Islamic sciences, cannot just make rulings for themselves, right? Everyone looks to someone for when Ramadan is and how to pray. No one's like reading fiqh books, right? No average Muslim. So ultimately, taqlid is part of Islam, and that's kind of related to Sufism as far as having a sheikh. Someone said, how do you delve into tasawwuf from not an academic angle? I would say find a Sufi circle, find Sufis, find a tariqah, a zawi near you. Just find them near you, and if they're of good character and they seem like they're on a good path, and inshallah, be with them. Can you elaborate on meters in Persian poetry? This is kind of a more technical question. Basically, in English, this existed, but with free verse English poetry, it's kind of been, ditched. And it's kind of also been ditched in Persian, I think, nowadays, really. Where the idea is that the poem should not just rhyme. So if we look at, again, Hafez, and look at just any ghazal. So he says, May damad sob wa kelib as-sahab, al-sabu as-sabu ya ashab, sahab, ashab, ahbab, mayanab, daryab, abwab, kabab, shetab, nab. So if you notice, every line rhymes, right? That's the rhyme scheme. But if you read a poem, it's not just that the words rhyme, because it's actually kind of easy to rhyme words in Persian for some reason. The line actually has to have an internal rhyme, if that makes sense. It has to have a song. So when Maulana says Bishno in ne, or as name, cho hekayat mikonad, as jodai shekayat mikonad, the mikonad is the rhyme. But try to do this. Bishno in ne, cho hekayat mikonad, as jodai shekayat mikonad, ta mara beboride as nayastan. Every single line of the 20,000, or correct me if I'm wrong, someone, lines of the Masnavi follows the Masnavi meter. And every poem has an internal meter. So that's why when you hear them sung in ghalis and whatever, it has a nice rhythm. It's not just the ending rhyme, it's the whole poem rhymes. And it's really incredible. There's about 100 or so meters in the Persian poetic tradition. I think maybe 200. Don't correct me if I'm wrong. I studied them in university a while ago. We learned how to break down poems via meter. Sometimes meter is useful if a poem's meaning is unclear because of the text and the voweling isn't given. You can use a meter to find the actual meaning. It's really nice. But I think ultimately the meter is derived from Arabic poetry. Again, if I misspeak, please someone tell me. Yeah, so someone, Amber Peters brings up, just to note that drinking wine was extremely widespread, no matter any legal rulings on it in Muslim history, particularly among the elite. For example, Muslim emperors were alcoholics. Yes, this is true. So some wine poetry exists. So we call it khamriya in Arabic, or wine poetry. I would say that many of Hafez's poems that talk about wine are about actual literal wine. And then there's this one poem where he says, حقیقت نه مجاز است, which means it's real, it's not fake. And Hafez has many, and I'll write about this inshallah in the Hafez thing, where he has many poems where he describes wine to such a detail that it's kind of clear that he means literal wine, that there's really no spiritual reading. And that's to say that certain court poets, and by court I mean a royal court, someone who was paid by a sultan to write poetry, would write poems about drinking wine, poems that were read in parties. They say bazm, or like a banquet, a feast of the king. So if he had a feast with all his viziers and guests and whatever, and whoever, and the poet, his court poet, his highest ranking person, whether it be Hafez or whatever, would read a poem. Now, whether or not the person personally drank wine or not, they were reading a poem for a party, right? And it's kind of funny to think about it as like reading a poem for a party, like party music and Hafez's divan. But ultimately, a lot of these courts did not consider wine haram, or if they did, they were like, whatever, it's okay. We've been doing this before we were Muslim, and we'll just keep doing this. So as they pointed out, in the Mughal court and the Persian courts and a lot of courts, drinking wine was pretty widespread. Again, not to excuse this, not to say that you should or shouldn't drink wine, not giving like a ruling or anything. I'm not doing ifta here, but wine drinking was a part of Muslim culture. We shouldn't, when we resist desecularization, flip over and become hyper religious, right? We shouldn't deny history. Drinking was part of Islamic culture. There were tons of Muslims historically who drank, again, despite the fact that it was haram. No one's perfect. Muslims have always been breaking the rules. And I feel like that's why they exist. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So yeah, a lot of poetry is about literal wine. And the important aspect is for someone like me or someone who can dive into these texts to distinguish between what is spiritual wine, You know, what's May Alast? What is the wine that was from before time, the godly wine? And what is May Anab, as they say in Arabic, the wine of grapes? So we have May Alast or Jama Alast, the glass, which Hafez also speaks about, Jama Alast, the wine of everlasting wine from God. And also Dokhtare Raz, which Hafez is the daughter of the grapevine. Do you know Turkish? Not enough, unfortunately, but inshallah, if I can move to Turkey, I will learn. So, have you read the Persian poetry of Mirza Ghalib? Not enough, but my good friend Shabir Agha Abbas, he's so humble. He knows much more than me, but he's not as gustakh as me, as we say. He's not as not confident, but he's not as arrogant as me, is a good translation, to come and do things like this. I've been trying to drag him into the alive or something like that, but inshallah we'll get him happy enough to do it. We'll make him razi, as we say in Persian, and he'll come and talk about Mirza Ghalib, hopefully. But nonetheless, he is working on translating him. Says, yes, the Sultan who among other things conquered the city I live in Bar in Montenegro, is known here as Salim the Drunk due to his relationship with wine. Which provinces did you visit in Turkey? Unfortunately, only Istanbul, so I'd like to visit more, and especially Konya, inshallah. Do you frown upon Salafism? Yes, I think that, not to hate on any specific person who considers himself Salafi, but I think the methodology of the sect is kind of incorrect. Right, exactly. Madhabs are years of studying and knowledge. Salafis think a few years of interpretations and fatwas are enough. I agree completely. This idea that Salafis want to kind of like take apart or dismantle, you know, this whole long tradition we've had, I'm completely against it. I think that we really need to stick to our madhab understanding of Islam. You know, maybe some Salafi like Al-Albani, for example, not necessarily saying everything he did is good or bad. I haven't really looked into him that much really, but maybe someone who's as learned, one of their scholars, can understand Islam and Hadith enough and come up with a ruling that's legitimate. You know, Allahu Alam, you know, I hope the best. But as far as their lay Salafis, I see a lot of people in London, especially, not calling Londoners out, but especially there, they're really vocal. Just out there yelling on the streets, hey, you're kafir, hey, my sheikh said this, whatever, and they don't even like know Arabic, they don't know the difference between fi'l madi and mudara. You know, not to say that a lay Muslim needs to know Arabic, of course not. I mean, you can read, but not to like speak it. But if you're going to come up with rulings, you know, you need Arabic, but these people don't have the qualifications, they've never studied, they've never left the UK or whatever country they live in. So the methodology of a lot of Salafis has failed, unfortunately. How can one accept borderline mushrik Sufi practices like calling out to dead saints? Look up Wasila and the rulings on that, inshallah, for more. Where'd you get this book from? This is the Divan of Hafez. It's just a nice version in Iran. I got it at his grave. You can find them probably on the internet for pretty expensive. But if you live in a Muslim country, you should be able to track one down. If not, get an Iranian to bring one back from Iran. Kebab, yes, I love kebab, man. Inshallah, if you're in Turkey, we'll get it together. Can you recommend some poetry books, your absolute favorites? In Persian, my favorite is probably Divan of Hafez. And in English, Faces of Love is a good version of the Divan. Jawad Mujaddadi's Masnavi, although it can be difficult to get to. I haven't really, unfortunately, read many English books that I really felt captured the original, the essence of the original. So inshallah, I'll be working on that. If you'd like to see my translations, you can support this page on Patreon, and you'll be added to a group chat where I post previews of the poems that are coming in the books. Someone says it's Bobberidand. Oh my god, that's terrible. See, my Persian has been ruined by living in America, so inshallah an Iranian's tajweed of these books is better. Some people comment, your pronunciation isn't good. I'm aware, yeah, I'm not that good at reading it, unfortunately. Bobberidand, yeah, so this has to do with the wazn of the poems that someone's pointing out, is that to make the poem rhyme, you have to read it in a really specific way. So we would say in modern Persian, Beboridand, but he's saying Boberidand to make the wazn fit. And inshallah, someone who's better at reading can do that. That is not my thing. Just translating them is my thing. Someone says meters. It's basically about a particular rhythmic combination of long and short syllables. Exactly. I'm also not good at meter. The poems that I've personally written in Persian have usually faulty meter. And when I read with faulty meter. It just doesn't come well to me. Even music. I know one instrument. I played the guitar for years. I sucked at it. I learned the daf. Even then, in the khanqa, I mix up the meters and I mess up. And the person next to me pokes me, hey, you're playing the wrong rhythm of the daf drum. You're screw up the zik. So I'm not very musically inclined at all. That's definitely going to tell you guys right from the start. On Taghlid, Iqbal was seen as a reformer who said that it is better to commit suicide than to do Taghlid. He pointed to Taghlid as a reason for all South Asian Muslims' downfall in some continent. I would say blind Taghlid is a problem. If you're following a learned scholar and using your own aql, so you're seeing if his rulings make sense. Maybe you don't know the text, but as far as the aql, from the aqli perspective, do his rulings make sense, right? So if I follow a scholar and I say, well, what day is Eid? And he says tomorrow, and I say, but every other country says it's in 3 days, right? Then maybe from an aqli perspective, I could say, maybe he's wrong. Maybe I should find someone else. But as far as taghlid, we need taghlid. You know, the lay Muslim cannot come up. I'm sorry, they cannot do ifta. And that means doing fatwas. They can't write fatwas on their own, the average Muslim. The average Muslim cannot come up with rulings on specific things. Yes, the aql can take you to a level. There's obvious things. But certain very nitty-gritty elements of fiqh, I'm sorry, like even me, as someone who knows Arabic, who studied it, I would hand it off to someone who has a better qualification. I would do taghlid. Even people that I consider qualified, they, put issues off to higher ranking scholars. Some of the kibarul ulama, argue with one another about this rulings, and various centers of ilm, and in Mecca and Medina and in Egypt and Qom and Najaf and whatever, they're always fighting with one another. So who's to say that we as lay Muslims can come up with a ruling? We need to, inshallah, we need to limit our nafs and know our limits, right, as average people. How come you say Rumi doesn't have dual meaning as word choices? I think, yeah, he definitely does, but I think that Hafez has more. So when I read Rumi, yeah, there's definitely double meanings. Maybe in his ghazals there's more, but I'm not looking for double meaning. I'm not expecting it. There's definitely some there for sure, like any poet. But I think in Hafez, every line might have a double meaning, right? So that's what I meant by that. How old are you? Only asking me, you seem to have lived everywhere. I'm 23 years old. So I lived for a year in Iran, a year in Jordan, and most of the rest of my life in America. But inshallah, I'd like to spend time in Turkey. Not just because it's more inexpensive there, but also because, there's so much available there. It's close to Iran. There's teachers in Turkey that I'm aware of in Konya and Istanbul from various tariqas, Persian people working on calligraphy. Inshallah, when I'm getting ready to release the book, there needs to be calligraphy in there. There are calligraphers there. Really all the resources to really make this project get off the ground exist in Turkey. This is something I get asked. I get asked 2 questions about posting the most, and unfortunately the answer to them for now is no. So one question is, can you post transliterations? And that's essentially writing the Persian in the English language. My first inclination is no, because it just takes way too much time from the actual translation, which is the more important thing. And the second thing is there's so many different types of transliteration that it almost becomes useless. There's like so many conventions that it's kind of hard to pick one. And it's just going to take a lot of time. Maybe if someone wants to translate it on their free time, I could post that if they just want to give it to me, sure. But I don't really have the time at the moment, and I feel like even if I did it full time, I'd rather focus my time on translating. The translation really is the bigger thing that needs to be tackled. And as far as not writing in the Nasta'liq text, Nasta'liq text is just the standard for writing poetry. Again, if you pick up a poetry book, a good one, a well-made one, and especially ones that are historically made, the well-made ones, every single letter in this book is in Nasta'liq. Nasta'liq was just the text for poetry post-17th century, really post-Safavid. So I think that these modern texts, the ones you see on computers and stuff, which is what people want, they're kind of just ugly and modern. And if we put a little bit more effort into how we can learn to read Nasta'liq. Let's see. Can you shed some light on the Prophet's love for poetry? I've read somewhere. Generally, all the Arabs of that time loved poetry. That was a huge aspect of their culture. The Prophet, I would think, would have followed the vision of the Quran, which is having issues with some of the Jahili poets who were misleading people. But I think Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like any person, would have appreciated poetry, in its context. Yes, my friend who's working on Mirza Ghalib does have an Instagram page. He doesn't want to be public about it right now. It's kind of considers it a hobby, but once I convince him, inshallah, I'll post it publicly. Do you know of any Pakistani Sufi groups? If you mean in Pakistan itself, there should be a lot there. Inshallah, if you talk to people more local to you, or someone in Pakistan can maybe elaborate. I am not aware of any translations of Al-Buraq, unfortunately, or the Khamsa of Nizami. I don't think the Khamsa has been translated. Although if you look into that, maybe I'll be wrong, Inchaallah. Let's see. Do you speak any Urdu? No, unfortunately I have not. I do not speak it, but hopefully in the future I can learn it. Let's see. You're not Persian? I am half Persian, half Turkic. Let's see. The Diwan of Hafez. I wish I could give this Diwan of Hafez to you, but it's the only one I have. Maybe if I go to Iran and Shiraz in his grave, I can, Inshallah, acquire more copies and do a giveaway of the Diwan of Hafez. I did a giveaway of his Diwan. I think it was the first giveaway of this page a long time ago. Are you cognizant of how many of your fans are Pakistani South Asians? Yes. Okay, this is an interesting topic. So when I first made this page, it was just for my friends who are around me. And then once they come up with a story share feature. So when I made this page, there were Instagram stories, I'm pretty sure. But they came up with a feature of sharing a post to your DMs and then also to the story. Then my friends started doing that. Then I started to get fans. And by fans, I mean people I didn't know in person, like not just like followers from my real life, right? And then they started sharing, commenting and stuff. And I noticed almost all of these people are from South Asia. And that was so confusing to me because I was still trapped in this Iranian nationalist mindset. Not nationalist as far as like being racist or disliking other people. I already at that point like was kind of growing out of that. But this idea that Persian poetry is only read in maybe Iran and Afghanistan. And then I realized, I started learning about British colonization, how Persian used to be the literary lingua franca of South Asia, and how that was ruined by the British, and how almost all Pakistanis and Indians who are, especially of Muslim origins, their great-grandparents knew Persian, and they were almost, they say it's amazing, the majority of Persian poetry throughout history has been written just by sheer number, has been written in South Asia, and the manuscripts and all that, the deep history of Persian in South Asia. I uncovered this, and even till this day, it's just amazing and humbling to me how many fans I have from South Asian heritage. I really love it, and it's really tragic how South Asia was ripped from its roots via colonization. I think a lot of times we repeat the statistic. When the Brits went to what is now Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, let's say historical South Asia, it was 25% of the world's economy, and now it's 2%. Or when they left, I'm sorry, when they left, it's 2%. So from 25%, it went to 2%. We lament the loss from an economic standpoint. Look at the poverty that is rampant. God save us from poverty in South Asia as a result of what the British did, ripping resources, right? And the brain drain that's caused, and all of these issues. I won't preach to the choir. Many of you watching know this way better than me. You live it, right? You're of that descent. But one thing that we need to measure, and I say we as Iranians as well, and Pakistanis, Afghans, whoever, we need to measure our losses in colonization from a cultural element as well, right? So yeah, let's say historical South Asia was 25% of the world's economy, and Inshallah, with the work that the new generation is doing and the bright young minds that are there, it will return to being a developed part of a fully developed first world type of living situation, right? Like the West. Inshallah, we'll get there sooner. We're seeing progress every day, young minds coming out and making change for the better, inshallah. But Persian in South Asia, will that come back? I sadly think it won't, because it's just too far gone. Once a language is lost, it's hard to claim it back. We have very few examples of this in history. So this is a very sad thing that I came across via people following this page from South Asia. And every once in a while, someone sends me, hey, this is my grandpa's love letter in Persian to my grandma or great-grandpa. This is my great-grandfather's will or his college degree or his poetry. And before, when I had less people contact me, I used to be able to help them more. Now I'm less and less able. But it's just a tragedy, the amount of Persian culture that was present in South Asia. Because when we say Persian, we're thinking of Iran, right? And not even Afghanistan, sadly. We're just thinking of Iran. But Afghanistan, Iran, Tajikistan, modern-day Pakistan, modern-day India, Bangladesh, Turkey, the Balkans, all of these places had Persian culture. By Persian culture, I don't mean they're like my ethnicity or something, or my clothes. I mean, they read Hafez, they read Rumi, they wrote in Persian the way that we do in English now, right? So they were participating in this regional, global Islamic culture. And ultimately, that's one thing that my South Asian readership has taught me, and that I've really learned from having so many people here from South Asia. Thank you for all the nice comments from everyone. People are asking me what I think of Mustafa Kemal. I'd rather not get into the politics of a country that I'm not from, just because, I have my opinions, of course, like anyone has their opinions. At the end of the day, I'm supporting Islamic culture being reborn and all that, so I don't like westernization, but can I criticize someone else's country? He was dealing with the threat of Turkey, God forbid, being colonized and ripped apart. And he really ultimately saved Turkey. So modern day Turkey is indebted to their founder. If I disagree with a certain policy of a leader, all due respect to them, and they're a different country, so I can't speak on a different country, right? Maybe if I'm with my friends and they ask a question, I'll say this is what I think. But as far as on a public platform, just generally, I would prefer to not comment on the political situations of countries that I'm not a citizen of, right? So I'm Iranian citizen, American citizen. I'm happy to comment to the extent that I know. But as far as other countries, all due respect to other people's countries, maybe Inchaallah, a Turkish person can comment about that. Right, so can you elaborate on the meaning of the line you have translated as between Kufr and Islam, while rejecting Coleman Barks as between right and wrong? So I think Coleman Barks, when he translated this, didn't have like a bad intention. I don't think that he meant, let me remove the Islam. He thought that maybe this meant the same thing. But the nuance that's lost there is when Rumi is saying between Kufr and Islam, he's not saying that he's not Muslim, right? That he's in the middle path between Islam and Kufr, like he's some agnostic in the middle. What he means by Islam, the contextual meaning, is that Islam means harsh Islam, like we would say Salafis today. Islam, 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 strict, the Maulvi type of Islam, if we want to like make a kind of like a joke about it. And then Kufr would be the opposite of that, which is like very harsh, against religion. And then in the middle is kind of this middle path of his tasawwuf, of his Sufism, right? So that's what Maulana means when he says between Kufr and Islam, there's a middle path, and that's where the Gnostics, the Urafa, the Arif goes. And that's what my teachers told me, when I asked them about Shia, Sunni, or atheism and all that, they say, look, man, don't worry about this and that extreme. Follow the middle path. Islam, as is traditionally understood, we're always trying to follow the middle path. So Inchaallah, God, Allahumma athbitna ala the middle path, as I've said in English. Do you know of any Eastern poets that are predominantly feminist or work from a feminine or female gaze? So I actually have a book. Unfortunately, it's on the other room, so I don't really want to go and get it. That I'll be giving away on this page soon. I just arrived. I'm going to look at it myself before I give it away. It's called, it's by Dick Davis. I actually forgot. It's called Something from the Heart, maybe. It's essentially a compilation translation of every female poet in the Persian tradition. And it's not actually a huge compilation, unfortunately. And the reason is that women were not taught to read and write for a long period of time. And also generally people were not. So if you look at even up until the Industrial Revolution, literacy was reserved for the rich, the upper classes. And even among them, the men, right? Let's say 90% of people probably didn't know how to read. I mean, maybe some historian can tell me where I'm wrong, but that would be my guess, something like that. So definitely women were not reading and writing, an average person in general. The women who wrote poetry at the time were wives of rich people, daughters of kings. They were in privileged positions. They were in the court. So one is Jahan Malik Khatun or something like that. She was the son of the Sultan in Hafez's era, and she wrote a lot of poems. So unfortunately, there's not many. But as you come in the recent era, there are a lot. I think it's Furugh Farrokh. Yeah, Furugh Farrokhzad is a big female poet. Simin Behbahani is another more traditional poet. Furugh Farrokhzad wrote in like a new style Shia, I don't know what to say in Persian. There is Simin, there's Parveen Ehtisami is another one. She wrote in a more classical style. She's probably one of the better modern female poets. But there are a lot, and I'll be giving away a book. So Inchaallah, if you don't win the giveaway, I mean, I hope you win it. Inchaallah, by random it's picked. But if you win it, if not, you can buy the book online. I'll be giving like the information of where you can get it. Thank you so much for all the nice comments. All right, everyone who wants to go to sleep, please just know that this will be on IGTV. So if it's late, I understand in Iran, Pakistan, it's getting to be like 1 in the morning. Please go to sleep. It'll be there. You can watch it later. If you have a question, just drop it in the comments. If I get to it, I'll get to it, and then you can see the answer later. Hafez translation that isn't horrible. We're working on it. If you can support us on Persian Products, Quran Quotes Daily, by the way, is a great page. If you can support us on patreon.com/Persian Products. Link is in the bio to get that out faster. And also you'll see the poems as they're translated. I have a series where I'm actually dissecting Hafez's Divan one poem at a time, literally a 10 or 20 minute video for every single poem. There's about 495 ghazals. So I think by the time that's done, that'll be how many thousands of hours of video, Inchaallah. We've already had like a couple hours out there for the first 8 poems. So if you become a Patreon supporter, you can get access to all those videos immediately. Where am I from? I'm Iranian and Turkic origin. How many languages do I speak? I speak English and Persian fluently. I just grew up speaking them. Unfortunately, I never learned Turkish, so I'll learn that in Turkey. And I learned Arabic in university in Jordan. And I learned Spanish, but I've forgotten most of it by now. So glad you're well versed in the regional history of South Asia. It's really from you guys, seriously. My fans from South Asia, the followers have spoken to me and DM'd me and have so many conversations. I'm indebted to their patience and their kindness of really sharing the history of a vast region of the world. Where really, you know, in Iran, we think of South Asia as like it's this place over there. We don't know really how vast, like every city could be its own country in that part of the world. Really, it's so diverse and amazing. All right, trying to find more questions. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comments. Right, so many people don't know, but Balkan languages are written with a modified Arabic script. Very interesting events. You know, if you look at documents in the past, many languages in Muslim countries that now are in different scripts are written in Arabic script. Kashmir is called Iran al-Saghir, which means little Iran. And just a few generations ago spoke Persian. Right. So there's huge connections between Kashmir and Iran. Many historical famous Iranians have lived in Kashmir or were from Iran and moved to Kashmir, or from Kashmir moved to Iran. Kashmir and Iran have a lot of historical connections. There was a famous Persian poet, I can't remember who, but he went to Kashmir for the first time. You know, the most beautiful God, you know, help all the people in Kashmir with all the tribulations that they're going through. And he says, Agar Jannat dar zaminas, haminas to haminas to haminas, which means if there's a heaven on earth, it's this, saying how beautiful Kashmir is. So Inchaallah, Ya Rab, can a more peaceful future come for the people of Kashmir, so that we may all visit and enjoy the beauty that's there. What translations of the Masnavi? Javad Mujaddadi. I would like to help. Is there anything that I can do? If you'd like to help and you have a specific thing that you can help with, whether if book publishing is a big thing that I'm looking into now, is various avenues as far as getting a book out, whether traditionally or self-publishing. If someone has experience, if they publish their own book, that would help. If someone is good at graphic design, we're looking for a cover we need to design as well. That would be of great help. If you could suggest poems to translate in a way that anyone can help if they're financially able, of course, if they're able, is to just donate via Patreon. Patreon.com/Persian Poetics. Link is in the bio. That is ultimately the best help that anyone can give. And help that's free is just sharing the work, sharing the page. How do you think the script matters? Script, you know, the script is part of the character of a language. I think Nastalir is beautiful. It connects us to the Quran. It connects us to the rest of the Muslim world. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's a great tragedy that Tajikistan changed to Cyrillic, unfortunately. Let's see. The Ummah must unite. We're divided tragically. Yes, I think Muslims need to really focus on being united with one another. Which city do you live in? I lived in Tehran, and then met the Detroit area, and then Ann Arbor. Went to University of Michigan. And I was in Dearborn, Michigan for a bit, which is where a lot of Arabs are. And then I went to Amman, Jordan, and now I'm planning on going to Istanbul, both for economic and spiritual and reasons related to this project as well. What time is it here? I think it's about 4 p.m. Thank you so much for the nice comments, everyone. Also, I really appreciate everyone. Someone saying I'm missing this. If you need to go to sleep or work or anything, these will be on IG Live. Don't worry, you can watch this later. Why don't you make a YouTube channel? I do have a YouTube channel. So if you go to my personal page, which is on this page's bio, it's at Shadowslide. I have my own YouTube channel. Maybe I'll link to it later if people haven't seen it. What did you study? I studied economics and Middle Eastern and Islamic studies at university, and then I went to Jordan where I spent a year studying Arabic and Tasawwuf there with various Qadri shuyukh. Thank you for all the nice comments. Are you alone or do you have a team? In the sense that the actual like work is done alone, yes, I do this alone. I translate alone. I do the page processing alone. I respond to everything alone. So that's really why I'm asking for Patreon support, so I can spend more time doing this, because it's a lot. As far as we have a team, I have tons of great people in the Patreon chat who we're constantly talking back and forth, bouncing off ideas, volunteering their time, you know, to help in various ways. So yeah, in a way, the Patreon supporters really are my team. Okay. I've noticed that your English translations have a nice rhyme scheme to them. Don't you have to compromise the original poem to achieve this? I would say to understand this process, we really need to look at what translation is. So there's a spectrum. On one side, you have a translation that's so different that it looks different from the original, like Coleman Barks, right? It's just too different. And then on one hand, you have a translation that's so literal that it's only useful to use to understand the original text, like Nicholson's Masnavi, or this translation and commentary of the quatrains of Rumi. It's great, right? But the translations are so dense, I don't know if anyone can make sense of it, maybe they can pause it later, that it's really like so boring to read because it's just too literal. Like every word is literally translated. So I try to, inshallah, find the middle path where the meaning is preserved, but it rhymes and it's nice and poetic in English. As far as what do I compromise? I am willing to compromise a small meaning, but I'm not willing to compromise the spirit or the message. So by small meaning is, let's say, if the poem says, my like tall tree. If I say my beautiful statured tree, let's just an example, a small synonym, right? The word's still the same word, it's just a different word. That's fine for me because it's the same word at the end of the day. Someone reading the original and the translation, they could connect them. But I will never change the meaning. I won't insert or remove a meaning. That's my line. And ultimately, that's why it takes so long. I'm telling you, I spend sometimes an hour on a line because I want to find a way to make it rhyme and poetic and also keep to the original. And this is the ultimate struggle. And this is why it takes so long to do these translations versus some of these other, translators. They're so lazy. They're just putting out, like Coleman Barks, like a dozen translation, but there isn't a single rhyme in the book. It's sometimes disappointing. I find a translation of a great poet, a great work, but the book doesn't have a single rhyme. And it's like, how is that a poem if there's no rhyme in it? Part of the beauty of poetry is that it rhymes. Otherwise, it's no fun to read. So ultimately, I think a lot of translators get lazy and they just do literal, dry, no rhyme translations, which in an academic setting is valuable, of course, all due respect to that. But as far as putting that out to the average person to read who just wants to read it and enjoy it and feel like they're reading the original and doesn't know the original language, I think that's useless. Okay, so someone says, I've been asking this before. Can you comment? I'm sorry if I missed it. What is Irfan and Rumi's connection? Irfan can be translated to Gnosticism. Irfan comes from Arafa in Arabic, and Gnosticism comes from to know in Greek. I'm not an expert on Irfan. I think in Ja'fari thought they called their version of Sufism Irfan. I don't quite know what the question is getting at, to be frank. My apology. Someone's commenting about their ability to help. If anyone can help, please just reach out. That would be a great help. I've talked about where to start with Rumi. Just please watch the original live in the thing. Javed Mujaddidi is great. If I'm ever in Chicago, please let me know. I'm planning, inshallah, once the first book is released, I will return to the United States and try to visit some people because there's people in Toronto, people in Chicago, people in Toledo, near Detroit where I'm based. I'd like to go around and meet with some people, take some physical copies of the book, maybe, do some in-person meetups. That would be really fun. If anyone knows any foundations or masajid or universities or whatever that would be interested in hosting me, or once a book is done hosting me and have me talk about the book, I would be honored. Please reach out. Probably DM or email would be the best way. How did the radical change Rumi once he met Shams? Rumi and Shams' meeting, I don't have time. Maybe you could do like a whole live could be done about this. But essentially, Shams showed Rumi a different side of Sufism. So this is a big mistake. People think that Rumi didn't know about Sufism and Shams showed him Sufism. Rumi was already aware of Sufism. His dad was a Sufi. Shams showed him a different side that ultimately led to the beautiful poems that we know. Thank you so much for everyone going to sleep. Some people are saying I'm going to sleep. I know it's like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in some parts of the world right now, or well into the night. These will be recorded, no worries. My name is Muhammad. People occasionally ask, what is your opinion of various scholars? I don't know, and I haven't seen enough of a lot of these people to give a roundabout opinion. Some people ask about Omid Safi. A specific person is asking about Sayyid Hussein Nas. I can say that the things I've seen from them I liked and I respected, but I've never met them in person or done like a holistic view of their work, let's say, to give an overall opinion. What do you think of 40 Rules of Love? I spoke about this earlier in the live. I kind of gave an overview of that. I think inshallah maybe me and Zara will have to do like a live just about this. So again, if anyone has any other questions or if I missed your questions from the last one, unfortunately there were so many in the comments that got deleted. Please drop them and I'll inshallah be able to answer them. Let's see, I'm trying to scroll. It's gonna be hard to load some. Okay. What is your definition of Sufism? I would say Sufism is kind of vague and hard to define. Sometimes I meet people who said, oh, I heard about Sufism and I went on the Wikipedia page and I didn't quite understand it. It's hard to define. What I would say is ultimately it's the inner spiritual path of Islam is Sufism in a nutshell, if I could explain it. If you have any specific questions, maybe I can elaborate more. Do you have a Facebook? Yes, Persian Poetics is on Facebook. I have a personal Facebook. I have a lot of strangers on there, but I kind of don't want to keep adding people because I don't really use it, and it's kind of weird seeing like random people stuff on Facebook that I don't know. I don't mind adding people on there. It's just I don't really go out there. It's not the best way to interact with me. What is this? Some sources for Farsi poetry that's translated by accurately translated. Javed Mujaddadi, Dick Davis are two of my favorites. They're the two best as far as I know. And this page, inshallah, we're going to be putting a book. Sadly, there's not enough people, so I hope to be adding and also encouraging the presence of more people. What do you think about nationalism in Islam? I think nation-state nationalism, as it is right now, is probably not compatible with Islam. You know, we have hadiths that people say, you know, hubb al-watan min al-iman, you know, loving your country or your watan, your origins from iman. People rebut with that. It's a statement attributed to the Prophet. The veracity of that hadith, you know, I haven't studied hadith sciences. I can't tell you the extent to which that is accurate or even where it's from, but people say this a lot. I would say that the historical understanding of watan, you know, homeland, is not the modern one we have. This idea of these defined borders and this superstructure and this state and I love my country, I hate yours, and you know, being xenophobic and countries fighting, and even Auzubillah, Muslim countries like Iran and Iraq fighting each other. No, none of this. I think, in my opinion, none of this is allowed in Islam. Ultimately, we need to identify as Muslims and be good to other people and be human. And yeah, of course, we can love our what city we're from, or region we're from, or what language we speak. We can love all that stuff, but attaching it to a nation and making about the things that it's about now, wars and all these things, is really toxic for us. You know, India, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, so many other countries, Yemen, Saudi, you know, so many countries are having conflicts. And not to disclude any, I don't mean to leave anyone's conflict out, but there's so many of them. But specifically in the Ummah, it's just enough. You know, it's. Thank you so much for everyone leaving nice comments. I appreciate it. What languages are most similar to Persian? I would say Arabic, Urdu, and Turkish definitely share the most similarity as far as major languages. There's minor languages as well, but they're not really well known, like Kurdish and Lurish and all that stuff. They're super similar. Like I would say they're really similar. They're all Iranic languages, so to speak. Have I read the works of Ibn Arabi? No, unfortunately, my Arabic is not good enough to read those works without like a guide. So maybe inshallah I can get more into the Arabic side of Sufism. People like Ibn Arabi have not really registered that big in the Persian Sufi tradition. We don't really like read or talk about him. We focus more on the works of people like Maulana Rumi and things like that. There's this quote attributed in there to Rumi. What is seeking you is what you seek is seeking you. Is there any way to find the original Farsi? I think this might be from the Rubai. It says. Hachi dar jostana ani. It says, whatever you're seeking, you are that. So maybe that's the original. You know, that might be mistranslated, but it also sounds like Rumi could have said it. It doesn't sound too crazy. Let's see. All right, someone pointed out the translation by thing. Yeah, so I complained on my personal account and also this account. I didn't want to do it. For like 3 years, I've been running this page with no watermarks, and I think it kind of looks tacky. But you know, when I come across a bunch of big pages posting, whether you know, not husnad, then you know we have the best assumptions about people, but whether with knowledge or without knowledge, people have been posting my page, and sometimes I message them. They either say I didn't know or they apologize, but I just don't want to see pages with you know bigger followings than me posting my stuff, or even I had an imitation page. So. Unfortunately, this is just a necessity that we have to make sure that people aren't stealing the work, you know. So, and by the way, I don't mind if people who are followers of this page like repost the poems. That's not what I'm talking about. That's fine. Please continue reposting and sharing them. I mean people who try to pretend that it's their work. That's the frustrating one. How have you come across Allama? Well, Zirar is working that, inshallah, at Zirrar. And, okay, I am coming to, it seems like, the end of the questions that are here. So again, if anyone has any questions, please type them out. If new questions don't come slowly, I'm going to put the live to a wrap. Put your @ in the photos. We've begun doing that. Have you studied Urdu poetry? No, I have not studied it. Unfortunately, I don't know the Urdu language. Someone says, were you raised in the States? Yes, out of the 23 years of my life, I think 20 of them or 19 of them have been spent in the States. All right. So let's see if there are any other questions. Please drop them faster if anyone has any. Otherwise, we'll slowly wrap it up. Why you don't support Black Lives Matter? Oh, I do. Go to my personal page at Shia. You can see tons of posts about that. I did a live with my good friend Hamza Raza, who's knowledgeable about the African American and African spheres of Islam, about Black Lives Matter yesterday, actually. Your favorite books on Islam? You know, I haven't actually read about Islam much. Many academic books about it in English. I really should. I've heard What is Islam by Shahab Ahmad is a good one. I'm not gonna say that I say that it's good because I haven't read it. But as far as books, Islamic books generally, I'd say the Masnavi is good, Divan al-Hafez is good. The Quatrains of Abu Sa'id Abu al-Khair, which I'm working on translating that slowly as well, and it's a back burner project, inshallah, after Rumi. Those are definitely good works. Sheikh Mahmoud Shabastari's Gulshan al-Raz is a good book or work to read about Sufism. But unfortunately, I haven't dug into the academic side of reading about Islam. I'm considering maybe doing further academic studies in an institution in the West so I can understand that element better, maybe in the UK or United States in the future. Maybe after a few books are worked on, because I think that's kind of has a higher priority right now. Yes, inshallah, if I'm ever in Chicago, after the book is released, I'll come back to the United States and visit some people here, inshallah. Are you a follower of Sufi? Like, no, it's sorry to offend. No, it's okay, it's fine. Yeah, Qadiriya, I've mentioned that before. Are you looking to completely move out of the States? Yes, I actually was completely moved out of the States. The only reason I'm here is because I was in Jordan was getting shut down. So I was like, okay, I can stay here for a shutdown for like 3 months alone because all my friends and coworkers and stuff were leaving. So I got up and I came to America where I have, where some of my family live. But inshallah, I'm going to figure out where I'm going after this. Thank you for all the nice comments. Where is the University of Michigan? The book release, it's inshallah within 6 months. But really the best way to speed it up is to just go to patreon.com/PersianPoetics and donate, or to share this so that more people can kind of get behind this page. Come to Toronto. Yes, inshallah, Toronto and Chicago are the major cities of the Midwest, and this region generally are the places I'll be visiting. But once the book is released, inshallah, I'll get a rental car and fill it to the brim with copies of the book, and we'll go and we'll figure it out. Come to India. So inshallah, if I'm based in Turkey, traveling to the region generally will be easier. So I'm thinking that once I'm in Turkey, inshallah, we'll be able to meet up. I'm sorry, I'm losing my ability to talk for so long. Meet up with people in Istanbul. And because it's a crossroads, you know, people from Europe, London, UK, South Asia, the Arab world, they all visit. So inshallah, ya Rab, we can do that. And I'd like to visit South Asia as well, but it's such a vast place that it's not like Turkey where you can go to Istanbul, Izmir, Konya, you know, a few places, or Iran, go to the 4 cities. It's like, where do you even begin? You know, it's such a vast subcontinent. You know, like traveling, it would take like a year, you know, just a year of straight travel. So inshallah, once I'm there closer and have some more free time and do some more reading and figure out where I'll go and what I'll do, I'll be doing that as well. How old were you when you were introduced to Rumi? I kind of inherited this understanding of that Rumi is, you know, a scholar in the Persian tradition, as any person who grows up in a Persian-speaking household. But as far as when I was aware, ultimately happened when I was introduced to the Sufi path when I was about 19 years old. So about 4 years ago now, I started reading him because just generally Sufis, but especially Persian-speaking ones, South Asian-oriented ones also, they tend to read and, recite Rumi. What was living in Iran like? Advice for an Iranian American going back? You know, I moved to Iran when I was 15 years old, and I was kind of sick of America. I wanted to be with my grandparents again, who had helped raise me in America. And I wanted to get my Persian better, and I wanted to be reconnected with my religion, culture, all that stuff. And living in Iran was great. It was a good experience. You know, going to school in Iran helped my Persian. It helped me understand the society better, to connect, not just being diaspora. Because people who are diaspora know that visiting the country that you're from or that your parents are from is different than living there, right? Whether you experience it or your parents have told you, it's different. So living in Iran helped me understand what life in those places is like, you know, as opposed to the America that I was used to. So as far as doing this as an adult, that's a different story. Again, I was 15, I went to school, lived with my grandparents, but as far as an adult, there's some issues to consider. One is the legality. So if you're a man, you need to get your military service figured out. 2 is the income. Taking US dollars, can really help. Iran's currency is really devalued, unfortunately. So if you take $10,000 with you, you can live on that for like a year in Iran. But ultimately, you know, what you'll do and what the purpose is. You know, if you want to go reconnect with your culture, improve your Persian, study, do cultural stuff, I'm thinking of doing something like that in the future as well, especially because so many of the ustads of Tasawwuf and also these poems are based in Iran. So, you know, maybe inshallah we can have a Tehran meetup. But I'd like to maybe speak about that and maybe even a live or something like that for people who are interested. Khuda Hafez, to people who are leaving, don't worry, this will be recorded, this will be out there. Any tips about learning languages? Immersion, 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 and practice. Ultimately, I did a year's worth of Arabic study in America, and the amount of Arabic I learned in 3 months of living in Jordan was more than that. So after a year of living in Jordan, I feel relatively fluent in Arabic. وإذا في هذا عربي في الchat فينا نحكي أصلا عربي. So if there's someone, I just said, if there's anyone Arabic in the chat, we can speak Arabic. So you can see after a year of living in a country, even if you don't study the language, really, you'll learn the language, especially if you study it. I had to go for work. Can you tell me where are you based then? I'm based right now in the Detroit area just because of Corona, but Inchaallah, Istanbul. What have you studied? I answered that earlier. Is being a Sunni in Iran difficult? Generally, Iranians are very accepting, open, nice people. I don't think anyone has like overtly said anything about being Sunni. You know, once I was in a Sunni area and a lady said, an out-of-towner said, is there a Shia mosque here? And then the man that was next to me said, lady, there's no Shia or Sunni mosque here. You know, masjid's a masjid. Go worship Allah. No one's going to tell you don't pray with your hands down or up. We don't care. Just go pray. So alhamdulillah, Iranians are very open-minded, very nice people. Of course, people have their mindsets, their prejudices everywhere that exists. You know, Inshallah, we'll deroot all of that slowly. But, you know, everywhere there's prejudices and stuff in people's mindsets. But the government has, alhamdulillah, been taking more and more measures to soften the approach of the average person towards the, you know, the Unity Week stuff. They really, whether or not it's just lip service, you know, you can talk about that, but they've been trying, and the Iranians are nice people generally, so it's okay. But of course, at the end of the day, I won't deny being a minority in any sense is not great. You know, it's always hard. We're not in a perfect world. It's imperfect, right? So, but generally speaking, as far as being a Muslim minority, as far as that goes, it's pretty good. Like, being from minorities in other countries, you can be killed. You know, there's wars, there's stuff. So alhamdulillah, in Iran, as far as the difficulties go, they're not that great. I do not know Hazrat Anayat Khan. How can an Urdu speaker learn and read Persian? Taking a class is easy. اینکه اشعار فارسی رو میتونم به انگلیسی هم بخونم خیلی خوبه ممنون خواهش میکنم خیلی خوشحالم که بیننده و شنونده و خواننده ایرانی هم هستش سلام دوستم سلام دوست عزیزم You're really too kind. And someone says, I envy you so much in a good way. Please don't be envious. Wallah, I have 1,000 faults that you don't see in this live video. So, inshallah, hopefully I'll envy you. That's great. So the comment says, I'm from the Sunni minority in Iran too. I'd be curious, are you of the Kurdish background, Baluch background, Turkmenistan background? A Turkic Sunni. There are also Turkic Sunnis in Iran. It's not well known. Why are Saudis so against Sufi scholars? So I won't comment on Saudis. Even though I wish I could, following my rule of not making bad statements out of people's countries. Generally, let's say Salafis, you know, to avoid a country. Salafi scholars tend to hate Sufism because they view it as a bid'ah. And this is a larger context. Maybe I can bring someone more versed in fiqh. You know, I've studied just like a surface level fiqh. I haven't gone into the world of it. But I can bring one of my friends who's a sheikh and maybe we can talk about some of this. But generally, they view Sufism as a bid'ah, which in Arabic means innovation, right? So the validity of that claim, I'm personally against it. Can I elaborate on that in any meaningful way? No, people on YouTube have, and inshallah in the future I will. But generally speaking, you can look up, it's called innovation in English, and that's prohibited in Islam, but the understanding of what counts as an innovation is different by person. Durud bar shama. Have you been to Baghdad, Sharif to Maqam al-Qawt al-Adam? No, but inshallah in the future, yes. Maybe if I'm based in Turkey, I can more easily go. Turkmen, that's great, that's good to hear. What is the reasoning behind the movement of Sufis that go through in Zikr sessions? There is no reasoning, it's really spontaneous. If you go, you'll see. Let's see, have you ever visited Konya? No, but inshallah I will. One of my good friends in Turkey is moved to Konya actually. He's one of the shuyukh of Tasawwuf there. So inshallah I'll be studying with him and visiting. Okay, if anyone has any more questions, please throw them out. As far as I'm aware, I think I read through the ones that were here. It's sad that all the ones that were in the other live disappeared. If I didn't answer your question, please throw it out. Yes, I did speak about Ibn Arabi. I've heard of him, but I've not looked into him enough, unfortunately. So maybe in future studies, that will be something I'll look at. And maybe if my Arabic gets better, Aslan, I can start translating from Arabic into English. So inshallah, we'll see. But that's probably a long way away. It says to someone asking about dhikr and movement, there are many hadith and ayah about doing dhikr. Yes, God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, فَأَذْكَرُونِي وَأَذْكَرْكُمْ, and remember me, for I will remember you. What is the connection between Zulkhanas and Persian poetry? Mostly in commemoration of Ali and other forms of general dhikr. This is an interesting question. So Zulkhana, Zoorkhaneh. I used to exercise in one in Iran, actually. It's kind of like a blend of Sufi practice and exercise. It's really cool. There's drums and poetry recitations and tons of Sufi stuff. Oh, the live's ending. Okay, I think this will be the last one, unfortunately, guys. Maybe I'll talk about Zulkhana later, but this is the second hour. I can't go into the third hour. But Inchaallah, we'll do more in the near future. It seems like there's a lot of interest, Inchaallah. So please, if I didn't get to your question, just write it down or something in the next one asked. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, goodbye. Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafez. Khosh omadid. Ahlan wa sahlan. Yallah. Ma salama.